This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Omakase. It is episode number 114, and this week I am very pleased to be joined by the captain, the boss man, what was the old thing, the face who runs the place?
Yeah, that was bad. When AJ Styles used to use it. Yeah, that was a good one.
What's up, Rich?
What's going on? Thank you so much for having me. This is it's been a year to the day. It's not the day. I don't know when the day was that we recorded last year. But...
I think your last episode was the e-wrestling one, right? Wasn't that?
Well, we talked Observer, but was the e-wrestler?
It was 2 years. It was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. Okay, well there you go. So you waited this long to get the top show, because let's not forget the highest rated show.
Yeah,
Wrestling Omakase history is still that one. I don't know if the numbers are correct, but I'm going to go with it. So
the last episode you're on here was when basically Nicole and I went to Spain. And I was like, I need to record some kind of episode that'll be like evergreen. So you, me, and Mike Spears just like talked about fucking e-wrestling for an hour and a half.
What a great episode that was too. Yeah. Just, like going through like people that we knew, just the wild world of e-wrestling. Yeah. So I didn't know that was my most recent one. I thought that last year we had done the Observer. That was 2 years ago, actually. So anyway, hey, welcome back. I'm glad.
Well, what's up? But yeah, you had to come back on because obviously you have to earn your Omakase Awards ballot. Very, very important.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, I can't. You can't let the year end without getting that ballot. The most important, arguably the most important ballot in any wrestling history, including the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. So
it definitely is. I mean, Joe's running out of time to earn his ballot. He's gotta get on that. But yeah, what's up?
Not too much.
I hear you're breaking news.
Breaking news, getting people upset, I'm sure. It's been an insane wrestling week. It is overwhelming. I was at the beginning of the week, I had like a panic attack about all this crap that is going on in wrestling and everything that we have to talk about or whatever. And it's been a fun week. It's been really, really fun that like wrestling has just gone absolutely insane and American wrestling is the wildest it's been ever, really honestly, or at least in 20, 25 years. Japan doesn't slow down and there's some new stuff going on there. It's just, there's a ton of stuff going on right now. So it's fun. It's great. It's good for business here at voicesofwrestling.com. But yeah, it is also like tiring as well. I'll be pretty glad to not talk about wrestling for a few hours later today. So that's good. But I'm glad to talk about it now, though, because I'm still in the mood. I'm still excited about it. So
I was going to say this is like the only podcast on this entire network this week that's not going to talk about AEW or NXT. So because there's like 5 of them now. They're just talking about. I listened to.
That's the thing. Sure. Like I initially I was like, I don't know, like that's gonna be too much. We have everything elite. We have the Wednesday War Games. It's like, are they gonna? And like the numbers are just like everybody just wants to consume everything as much as possible. Like everybody's up, nobody's down. It's like that might not always be the case. Like it might be a situation where people do get sick of it. But man, like we've got the most Patreon subscribers we've had in months. We've had the most web traffic we had in months. We've had podcast listens have been the highest they've been. Like people are just consuming wrestling, I can say. And we've even heard from people in the industry too, like Independent Wrestling TV. They're Beyond Wrestling Uncharted Territory season premiere that came this week was like the highest rated one they've ever had. And they were like, oh, really? Like we thought this would be the worst one we've ever had because people are so, inundated with wrestling all minutes of every day that they were just going to not. But now they're just like, I only watch wrestling. So now every wrestling fan only consumes wrestling at this point and has given up every other entertainment medium. So that's it's good.
so like you were saying, we have the Wednesday War Games now, which I just actually listened to last night. So shout out to Garrett and oh god, Liam. Thank you. He follows me on Twitter, so it would be really bad. But yes, Garrett and Liam, they had a good debut episode. That might be like how I listen to the F4W, like the Monday Retro review, because I don't really care about the Retro Raw review, but like the Retro Nitro review is really hilarious. And here it's like, well, I don't really care about NXT at all, so I might just tune in, listen to the AEW review, and then listen to them pick who won that week.
Right.
I don't know if I need to hear about Adam Cole, baby.
Yeah, but you get and one of the great aspects of that show that we now know that Garrett's going to do is the weekly here's the weird shit that Mauro Ranallo said segment, which is I mean that's worth the price of admission right there, is to hear just how stupid he was on this episode of NXT. And man, oh man, was he real stupid on the first episode.
He was. Was. I don't know if anything will ever top that fucking, like, what did he do during the Adam Cole cage match recently? There was something.
He did the grovelly voice. Yeah. I forget what it was. Yeah, it was like Adam Cole was going to the death. Or I forget exactly what it was, but it was like what is wrong with you?
I was like, what the fuck? What are we doing? That's one of those moments like, what are we doing with our lives here? Like, what is going on? But yeah, so a lot of AEW and NXT content on the network. I haven't listened to new flagship yet because I think it came out while I was asleep, but I'm definitely excited.
Yeah, I recorded it like 6 hours ago, so that's how tired I am. It's like, yeah, I just stopped doing audio like 6 and 7 hours ago, but here I am again, so it's fine.
Yeah, and so that obviously, I'm sure I did listen to Joe Lanza on the Patreon. Just like, boy, you never heard a man more excited to read numbers than Joe Lanza. With those quarter hours, I had it on a speaker, and my girlfriend came in the room like, "Is he okay? Like, what is?" No,
actually, the answer is no. He's not okay. Yeah,
she's like, "What is he doing?" And I was like, "Oh, he's reading the quarter hours for NXT."
Yeah, it was. We touched on him a little bit more and less yelling on this episode of the flagship, but it is pretty telling as well. Even if you're not big into like ratings and numbers and all that sort of stuff, it ultimately, at the end of the day, like the big topic that we're talking about is that WWE in particular just has a young person. Like, young people do not watch that show, and there's this idea that young people don't watch TV anymore. And yeah, younger people watch less TV than their parents. That's obvious. Everybody knows that, but what we're finding out is that young people really just don't watch WWE. Like, young people that are wrestling fans or young people that are interested in wrestling watched AEW. They did. The numbers were good in those demographics. I mean, the young person demographics for AEW beat the young person demographics for Raw. Like that right there is like, oh shit. Like more than even like AEW beating NXT, which whatever, at the end of the day, it's not, it's the third brand or whatever, but more
by 500,000 though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a bloodbath. It was a bloodbath for sure. But
that still surprised me when it came out.
Absolutely, no, for sure. But for it to be that big in that demographic, the most important demographic, I mean, WWE beat them in 50 plus, but cool, okay, enjoy that. Like,
wow. The fucking Hannity viewership is hurting out for WWE.
Right, which is not, I mean, like, if any TV network would look at that and they would not be happy to say, hey, we won in 50 plus, unless you were, and we said, unless you're like Fox News selling commemorative coins or whatever and have like
get that Depends money.
Right, yeah. And like, so that's honestly, their ads should be that now, because that's the audience they're capturing. So it's just really interesting to see those demographics and in that first week, and really open your eyes to like, oh my God, young people really, really do not watch WWE at all, but they are willing to watch other wrestling on TV. So that's kind of a game changer in a lot of ways. Like, I wonder if a lot of other networks look up and go, oh, wait a minute, hold on, wrestling, may be a thing. It's just WWE doesn't know how to speak to younger folks or whatever. So it was super interesting to kind of touch on those. So yeah, if you don't love like granular ratings discussions, I get it. But at the end of the day, it was like really cool just to look at the big picture of like, well, hey, this is where they're up and this is where they're down and this is the yada, yada, yada. And like, yeah, it's pretty telling numbers. I think more than even just that overall number of AEW beating NXT. It's just how much they beat them in the young, 18 to 49 or even the 18 to 35 and all that other demographics. So.
Well, I said on Twitter too, even if you don't give a fuck about AEW, which, it's not my favorite promotion or anything, but like that number to me was also like a vindication for anybody who said for the past few years that WWE is like failing its audience, is driving people away, all that stuff, which, it's self-evident anyway, but people argue that and people are like, well, no, it's just cord cutters and, everything is down and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, clearly, like if there wasn't like a whole lot of wrestling fans out there who were very dissatisfied with World Wrestling Entertainment, they're not debuting with that number. and they're not debuting beating NXT by 500K plus.
Mhm.
So even if you're not like the biggest elite fan in the world, I still think it's like a very notable story, just to show just how like WWE is not serving the rest of the general wrestling audience, young people especially, just in general.
And we mentioned this, at the beginning when AEW first got announced or whatever, and we was like, even if you're the biggest WWE fan in the universe, you want this to happen. You want AEW to kick them in the ass a few times, because we've seen historically, and I don't know if he's got it in him again to do it again, but anytime Vince and WWE have been kicked and knocked down, and in this case, like really knocked down, like really just, we see them sort of get back up and always do that. So you should be happy that that's going to happen. Even if you only watch WWE, it's a good sort of swift kick in the ass to them to go, oh shit, okay, we got some problems. Whether they're going to actually change, whether they have it in them anymore to change, whether there's any reason for them to do it, given the TV deals and all that sort of stuff, we'll see. But anytime historically they've been knocked down like this, they've always gotten back up and gotten bigger. So even if you're just a WWE fan, like, you should want this news. You should want AEW to kick their ass a few weeks here, that and maybe get some things rolling, and possibly, or then you book Cain Velasquez for the Blood Show or something. Who knows?
The Blood Buddy Show. It's just amazing to watch. It's like I turned on Fox to see the end of to see Brock and Kofi. I was curious what they're going to do, and boy, did they do something. But but then like the Kane angle, and then wake up to the news like, oh yeah, by the way, it's for the Blood Buddy Show. And it's like, okay. I mean, I said on Twitter that sounds like the kind of thing I'd make up to make fun of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now, before we get into today's topic, Rich, the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, the people have spoken. The audience of Wrestling Omakase, they love anime talk, and I was worried you wouldn't be like a great guest for that. But when you came to me and said, John, I volunteer to watch all 200 episodes of Sailor Moon before I come on, I was like, Rich, that's a lot, and you got a lot of stuff to do this week with AEW and NXT and everything. Are you sure? And you're like, John, I will do it. So, Rich, let's go. What's your thoughts on all 200 episodes of Sailor Moon?
Oh, can I do it? Because we got to get to the main topic here. I mean, I think you got to bring me back on another time to talk about that, because there's too much. But I will tell you definitively that Sailor Moon was originally translated as Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon, and then later as Pretty. I'm just reading the Wikipedia. I don't know anything about Sailor Moon. I know of Sailor Moon, but I can't say that I've ever actually like sat down and watched an episode of Sailor Moon. And I'm not anti-anime. I just have never really. I've just never had a chance to really get into it. There was a time like in my teens where I watched a little bit here and there, but nothing like where I can definitively say like, oh, I really consumed anime, and I don't even remember.
What'd you watch, Rich?
I don't even know if I remember, because I remember. Well, so Cartoon Network used to show it pretty often.
They had like a whole block called Toonami.
Yeah. So I forget what was it. Whatever was on there, because I would watch Toonami every so often. There was some Gundam show, I think.
Oh, did you watch Gundam Wing? That was like my jam.
Yeah, I think I watched a little bit of Gundam Wing.
That was like the first thing that got me into anime, basically.
See, the problem is my brain space has removed it. So I remember Toonami. So thank you for remembering that. I do remember Gundam. I watched a lot of the Pokemon cartoon series. Does that count?
Pokemon's an anime.
There we go. All right, I watched a lot of the Pokemon series.
It's a Japanese animated program.
What about G.I. Joe? Are you counting G.I. Joe in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
because that's more like the animated American program. This is like Pokemon. At least was like a like an anime. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
well, then I can talk about Pokemon. I guess I can talk about.
Give me your Pokemon thoughts.
Ketchum and Brock and Misty and all the crew and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Did anything this definitively happen in any of those episodes? Actually, didn't they popped up on Netflix not that long ago? And
do you know Ash just became the Pokemon champion?
I saw that. Finally,
last month.
That's good. Yeah,
I'm like, wow,
fucking loser. The Hiroki Goto of Pokemon finally gets his win after 22 years or whatever of trying.
Yeah, I'm like, buddy. I become Pokemon League champion every fucking game, and you're taking 22 years.
He should have let Pikachu become a Raichu. That's his problem. He was like, no, Pikachu, I want you to be Pikachu. It's like, fuck, Raichu's better, man. Let him be Raichu. So I don't know if that actually saw its way through. I know in the show, he turned into Raichu and then he didn't like it and he de-evolved him or whatever. But I don't know. But again, that would have helped him win some leagues if he had fucking Raichu instead of Pikachu.
That's true.
Whatever. You do you, Ash. So
that's a good point. You have to say that Ash could have done better with his evolution.
His selection was terrible. Yeah, his evolution patterns were pretty terrible too. So he's got too much loyalty. You can't have loyalty. You know what I mean? Like that. And that's I do that in the game too. I'm like, yeah, well, this is a great Pokemon, but it's time to evolve. So let's go, man. Like let's move up. Let's
You done good, but I found a much better water type. So
exactly right. So your history,
to the PC prison, which is very weird.
It is.
It is always weird. It's like, okay, well, enjoy the computer.
Yeah, enjoy your ball inside the computer, you loser. So see, I got new Pokemon now.
It's like, okay. But yes, so I mean that's your big anime reference. I'm not gonna hate. It's a good show, I guess. I haven't watched it in many, many years. It's one of those things where I can't believe it's still going. Like the big one to me is I don't know if you've ever heard of a show called One Piece.
Yeah.
That show's been going on for like, again, the manga and the show for years and years and years. And it's like the entire point is they're looking for this thing called the One Piece, and it's always like, how haven't they found it by now?
Really bad. You're really bad at doing this. So.
There was like I can't remember when, like I feel like it was a few years ago where the manga author was like, we're more than halfway done. Everybody was like, just halfway? Like, what the fuck? But whatever, I guess, Oh,
I did watch also to give me a little bit more credit. Maybe it wasn't Samurai. Was it Samurai Champloo? There was somebody made me watch a baseball episode of some anime. I don't remember if it was Samurai Champloo or something else, but there you go. That's my other one. I'm trying to remember what it was, and now I don't off the top of my head remember.
Well, that sounds vaguely familiar. So.
Okay, yeah. I watched that and I enjoyed it, and then I watched like 2 more episodes of Samurai Champloo, and I was like, I don't know if I enjoy this all that much. I don't hate. Here's the thing: I don't dislike anime. I just don't have. I already have so much to watch that like I just don't have time to watch that too, and I just never, for whatever reason, it never clicked with me. But it's like I appreciate it and I like it, and I love the art styles. I love the approach that animes take. It's just like I just never had a chance to really sit down and watch a ton of them, except for the 200 Sailor Moons I talked about. I watched, but we don't have time for that. So
I can give you many recommendations.
I have enough to consume already. It's fine.
All I watch is basically at this point anime and pro wrestling show. So I don't really have anything else on my plate viewing wise. So. What are you gonna do? You watch the NBA, so that takes up a lot.
Exactly. I watch NBA. I watch baseball. I haven't watched a movie in like 3 years. I just watch wrestling.
I haven't watched any fucking movie. Like, who has time for that?
Yeah, exactly. 3 hours. Get out of here.
I used to watch a lot of hockey, and now it's like, well, now I got no time because there's so much wrestling. But all right. So today's topic, actual topic, the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. As you mentioned, 2 years ago, you were on here to discuss it. Last year, we didn't do an episode. I don't even remember why. I guess I just didn't feel like it. But this year, we are back with the Observer Hall of Fame talk. I already did an article on Japan on the Voices of Wrestling website, which I plugged a few weeks ago. But to remind people, that's on voicesofwrestling.com. If you go to, columns, I think there's like a whole... Observer Hall of Fame section.
There is, and I put it on the main site too. So if you just go to voicewrestling.com and scroll down a little bit, you should be able to. There's a whole little like pocket there of everything that we are going to do Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame related will be in that little pocket. So you just scroll down maybe like 3 boxes I want to say from the top, and it'll be right there. It'll say Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame latest, and your article's right there with fantastic article as well. People should definitely check that out. I also have a few other ones on there as well. So yeah, you just scroll down a few little boxes on voicewrestling.com, the main page. You should be able to see it pretty easily.
So yeah, the Japan, I did that on the Japan list, which we're going to talk about all those Japan candidates. We're also going to talk about modern US and Canada and a little bit of non-wrestlers too. We're not going to talk about historical US, Canada, Europe, or Mexico because Rich and I have no fucking clue. So, I mean, like we could tell you, we could read to you from like, I don't know, Enrique Torres's Wikipedia page. But other than that, I don't really know what insight we could really.
Yeah, I was really. I mean, I got on here ready for your Sputnik Monroe takes, but I guess I'm not going to get those, so that's fine. Whatever.
So let's start with modern U.S. and Canada. Now, I'm going to make a very general statement, Rich, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. The quality of candidates in modern U.S. and Canada is far inferior to the quality of candidates in Japan this year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Going through this list right now of the people that are on the modern, U.S. and Canada, which I'm sure you'll run down here in a bit, but I'll just kind of generally, off the top of my head, I don't know. Like, I have a vote in the Hall of Fame, and I mean, I might go no votes. It is a real hard case to make for almost any one of these guys here. There's a few, obviously, like Junkyard Dog. We're going to talk about. He's a guy that I've had some inklings about maybe voting for, and people have sort of tried to convince me and whatnot. So that's one I'll buy. Like, we're going to talk about Goldberg here in a bit. He's a guy that I will listen to an argument for. I don't know if I'm there quite yet with Goldberg, but other than that, really, I mean, I don't know that I'm with anybody else on this ballot, and it's strange. Like Sergeant Slaughter maybe is another guy I would think of, but these are all guys that like I'm not voting. I mean, like, definitively, I'm not saying like, boom, definitely voting for this guy, definitely voting for this guy, definitely voting for this guy. And that's not really been the case for Modern US and Canada. It's been pretty easy for me to just say, hey, these 2 people or these 3 people I'm going to vote for this year. But this year, I don't want to have a no vote because I feel like that kind of stinks. But like, I don't know that any of these guys really jump off the page for me as being no doubt candidates for this year's observer ballot. So yeah, it's a tough year, and yeah, Japan is loaded. So more of my votes might go in Japan than Modern US and Canada. Almost guaranteed that more votes will go in Japan than Modern US and Canada, because yeah, it's just I don't see a ton in this ballot this year.
Yeah, Japan I think has a bunch has like at least I would say 2, maybe 3 that I think should be locks, and then US I don't think has any really. Like the closest to a lock for me, if I had a ballot, which Dave Meltzer, if you happen to listen, you should
I will
give
try.
me a
Hey,
ballot.
look, you have written an article. You're doing this podcast. I think I did it last year as well. I will do it again. I will forward your name. I will let you know. And that's the thing too. Anybody who ever wants to get a ballot, and if you're thinking, oh, I'd like to be involved in this or whatever, write something about the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. We are more than happy to to host that. But if you want a ballot, write something about it, study it, do something, and get it published. And that's how I got. I just kept writing shit about the Hall of Fame. People kept saying, hey, Rich is writing stuff about the Hall of Fame, give him a ballot. And eventually I got a ballot. So that is really what it takes. Is you can't just kind of sit and wait for him to send you one. You got to be proactive about it. You got to say, hey, I'm interested in, the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. Can I have a, like, you got to go out there and do something with it. So whether it's being on a podcast, writing something, doing something like that, you got to be proactive about it, or else, there's no way he's going to get you on there. So I will try again. I'm not going to say it's a guarantee. I mean, we basically begged for Joe Gagney to get on there for like 10 years, and eventually he got on there. So it's not easy, and it might not be immediate, but it's just, you got to be persistent. So
I'm pretty sure Dylan Hales asked for me too, or something.
Yeah, and you need like 4 or 5 different people to be like, hey, put this guy on, and eventually he's like, all right.
I mean,
fine.
It's possible Dave Meltzer just doesn't like me.
That's very, very possible too. I mean, he wouldn't be alone though. I mean, let's be honest.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Rich out here hating. No, it's
I like
true.
you.
I mean, look, there's a bunch of people that don't like me. That's very true. Let's talk then about the U.S. Canada candidates. We're going to start with the guy who you mentioned him, and I think he might be the strongest candidate on this ballot. He's the only one I think I would probably vote for if I had a ballot, and that is Bill Goldberg. It's his 3rd year on the ballot. He got 31% last year. That was almost identical to his first year in 2017 when he got 30%. We should mention, since we haven't said that yet, you need 60% to go in, which seems important to mention. But yeah, Goldberg, I think as far as like a guy who is like to the standard definition of a Hall of Fame, like you're a very famous person, I think he clearly fits that criteria more than almost anybody else on this list. Like, people clearly know who he is. People clearly are aware of Bill Goldberg in a way that they might not be aware of, Randy Orton, for instance. And if anything, I think he really added to his case for that return, because he felt like such a big deal, even as an older wrestler, and has continued to feel like a big deal every time they bring him back. That I think that really strengthened his candidacy. Of course, the big weakness for him is always going to be longevity. You're really talking about, I don't know, I've heard people say it's like 2 years. It's really like a year.
Yeah, I think you and I went through that 2 years ago. We were like, people bring up like 2-3 years or whatever, but really, when you break it down and like really look at it, it's like a year and a half between injuries and basically WCW not being effective anymore and him not being effective anymore. It's very tight. It is very, very tight window there for his longevity. Yeah. So sorry not to interrupt there, but yeah, I think that was you and I that maybe went through that. I forget if it was or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, like he really gets over in like March 98, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And he's done like as a draw by like, I don't know, like summer 99. So you're talking like barely more than a year. But yeah, I mean, like it's a very interesting candidacy because of that. It's like a very short window, but like in that short window, he was everywhere. Like he was, the closest WCW ever had for Steve Austin. And if you didn't grow up in that period, I mean, he was on the fucking Tonight Show constantly. You could not escape Bill Goldberg
TV
at that
Guide,
time.
cover of TV
The
Guide,
TV
which
Guide.
is a huge deal. Like, I know it's like as
Yeah.
hilarious as that is. Like, who fucking cares who's on the cover of TV Guide? Like, that was a gigantic deal being on the cover of TV Guide. That was huge because every person at every grocery store then saw that person, and everybody that got it delivered to their house, which was many, many people, saw that guy, and they were the cover story then of that TV Guide. So like that. To anybody under the age of like 25, they're like, who fucking cares who was on the cover of TV Guide? But that was everything. That was like, holy shit, what a moment.
But there was a time in the long ago when you couldn't just hit a button on your TV and just see every single goddamn thing that's on television on like a digital guide. You had to like flip through a book. It's kind of crazy. But like you and I are right in that age where we're like probably the last people born who actually had to use a physical TV guide.
For sure.
But,
absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, Bill Goldberg, big deal. I could definitely see voting for him. I totally understand the argument against him too. But if anything, I think he's really added to his candidacy in the last few years in WWE. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, so, and real quickly, I should mention as well that if people kind of want a primer on the Observer, I did a write-up for the website. So you can go to voicewrestling.com, scroll down to that Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame section. I have like all the candidates listed and all the kind of the rules, because like we could go over that again, but I feel like it's kind of annoying every time that like ever we talk about that, and I do it too. Every time I talk about the Observer Hall of Fame, I go through every one of the rules, and like let's just assume that either people know, or if you don't know, go to the website and you can find out about it. So we don't have to do everything again. But yeah, 60% is the threshold again, and then there's a bunch of other nuances of when you're on the ballot and when you fall off the ballot and all that other stuff. But at its core, 60% gets you in. That's all you need to know. But anyway, as far as Goldberg, he's a guy that I've wavered on. I have not voted for him in the past. As you said, he only got 31% last year. But he's one of the guys that I look at now, given how this ballot in the modern US and Canada is and how it's looking right now. And it's not to say because the rest of the ballot is worse that now Goldberg looks better, but he's a guy that I've now been able to give a little bit more thought to as I see and I go, okay, look, no on this guy, no on this guy, no on that guy. But he's one of my maybes. So I'm like, all right, let me think about this a little bit more. Let me think about Goldberg a bit. And I'll tell you, his case is growing on me a little bit. And one of the reasons why it's growing on me is this last year I went through and I watched the last 3 months or so of WCW episodes, WCW Nitro episodes for the Death of WCW series on patreon.com/voicewrestling.store. It's all about the final days of WCW, and going through and watching that and realizing that even until those dying days, something would happen. A bunch of heels would come in and do a bunch of bullshit, and the crowd would chant Goldberg, 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 and he never came back. They always teased Goldberg's coming back, and the crowd would go nuts, and he wouldn't come back. Somebody would get beat up and everybody would chant Goldberg. It was like they had a guy here. You know what I mean? Like yes, you know, in terms of like an actual draw, it probably was, like you said, March 98 to January, February or whatever of 1999, pretty much finger poke of doom afterwards. And then midway through 99, he's getting hurt and he's out forever. And then by 2000, it's WCW is what they are. And like, you can't not count that. You can't just say, well, he would have been better if WCW wasn't the way they were. But it's like, they still had him. He was still a thing even to the dying days of WCW. They were just so fucking terrible at doing anything that they couldn't capitalize it. And they didn't realize what they had. And they couldn't wait to beat him. They couldn't wait to turn him heel. They couldn't wait to just fuck everything up with Goldberg. But it's tough. But that's not going to extend his longevity. And even if it did, even if we said, okay, well, he's March 1998 until March 2001, even though he's injured half that time and not even around half that time, even if we do that, that longevity is not quite there. It's still a little tough to do that. The first WWE run is trash. That did nothing. It was awful. He was bad. It's just that's a terrible run. That run did not help him at all. But these runs now, and every time he's kind of come back ever since, you see just how important he is and how big of a star he was and how much he does kind of click with audiences still to this day. He comes out, the series with Goldberg, a few years ago. That stuff's really cool. He comes back and does the stuff with Dolph Ziggler, whatnot. He comes in and he's the biggest guy. He's the most over guy in the entire show. Again, that might also be because somebody is terrible at creating stars, but still, like it speaks to the fact that he has that profound effect that you mention Goldberg, you show Goldberg, you see Goldberg, and you go, oh, it's fucking Goldberg. Goldberg's a big goddamn deal, and it's like, all right, cool. Like that is that enough for a Hall of Fame case? I don't think so. I don't think so. Like, I don't know that I'm voting for him this year, but I'm at least going to try to give it a little bit more thought this year. The problem for him, though, is, the criteria of the Hall of Fame is great in ring, great drawing, and then like positive influence on or significant influence or whatever on the industry. The great in ring, like I like Goldberg's matches, but I don't know that you can really argue that His matches
he's a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's able to do exactly what he was able to do, but anytime you kind of got him out of that comfort zone of like, hey, I do a bunch of moves to you and it's over in 30 seconds, like it kind of all falls apart. And that was the problem with the first WWE run is they try to make him like a guy on the roster, and it was like, no, he's not good. Like, don't do that. Like, he can't have 25-minute Triple H matches with you, so don't do that. In subsequent ones, they figured it out and said, hey, fuck it. He comes out and he spears guys and he beats them in 5 minutes. There you go, done. So the in-ring isn't quite there. The draw, I think, you know, you got to make a case for that. I mean, in terms of the stuff at the Georgia Dome, you know, that big Nitro selling out the Georgia Dome, like you said, getting on TV Guide, being like the biggest star WCW had. Like, you couldn't go a lot of places without seeing people in Goldberg shirts at the time. I owned like 3 or 4 Goldberg shirts at the time, and it's like, yeah, it was a short run, but it was a significant and a profound run. So I think you can make a case on the drawing end for Goldberg. The influence thing and the you know, the positive is significant influence. I don't know. I like, yes, he's a guy that everybody knows. He's a guy that like your casual fan would know, but yeah, I don't know. It's tough.
Can I make an influence case real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like there were a million Goldberg clones. Like, I feel like there were just that image of like the bald head, like sort of. Like, I feel like that I saw that on the indies a million times.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And Ryback. I mean, honestly, that's another guy too.
But even Batista kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I feel like Goldberg, if you want to argue that's not a positive influence, I guess you could. But I feel like there were definitely a lot of Goldberg clones. I don't know. Like, to me, he is clearly. I actually don't even think it's arguable that he's a Hall of Fame level draw. If you want to argue like the longevity or whatever, but I just think he reaches that level of star where you're such a big star that you almost don't need the longevity. Like, you're just, you know, like a supernova draw or something. Like, you burned up really quick, but you were such a big deal. But then obviously the in-ring, he falls very short. And, you know, you can have a more macro discussion and be like, well, you know, they don't treat these two things as equal, when a lot of voters don't treat these two things as equal when they really should. But like, I almost think the influence is enough to kind of, you know, if you want to say maybe he meets 2 of the 3 criteria and that's enough to get him in, you could do that. Or you could just say he's like just he was such a big star during his heyday that, you know, he just squeaks over the line for you. But I don't know. To me, I would rather be at least like, he is, to me, bona fide Hall of Famer in at least one of the 3 categories, where the rest of these wrestlers on this list are not, you know, a bona fide Hall of Famer in any category, really.
Right.
So.
Yeah. If you're looking to like, I don't want to have no votes in this category, like, he's definitely a guy that, but again, like that, you probably shouldn't vote that way either. You shouldn't say, well, all these other guys suck and I might as well vote for somebody. So I guess I'll vote for Goldberg, but I'm going to give a thought to him. He's one of the guys that I put a little check mark next to of like, hey, don't immediately discount him. Let's talk about him at least a little bit.
Yeah. All right, so up next, CM Punk. This will be his 6th year on the ballot. He got 12% last year. So another thing we should mention too, I guess we can keep revealing the rules as we go along, is if you get 10% or is it under 10% or 10% or less?
I believe it's under 10%.
Okay, so if you get under 10%, you get knocked off the ballot. That happened to a bunch of people last year, including, I know, Samoa Joe. Who else got dropped? Vampiro. You know, a bunch of people got dropped last year. But yeah, so if you're under 10%, you get dropped. So, you know, CM Punk, he's much closer to getting dropped than he is to getting in. He had 12% last year. That was actually down 12% from the previous year, which was 24% in 2017. That was actually his peak since he got on the ballot. So he's never been particularly close. And he debuted at 19% in 2014. Punk is kind of going in the wrong direction here. I don't think it's that surprising, considering he, you know, obviously has not done anything in wrestling since he left WWE in 2016, right? Was Rumble 2016, I think?
No, I think it was even earlier than that, wasn't it? Wasn't it 14? I want to say.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
Maybe even earlier than that. No, I think 14. I think 14.
It's been a long fucking time. You're right. It always seems like it hasn't been that long, but yeah, we're all getting closer to death, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's 2014.
Yeah,
there we go. Rumble 2014. But yeah, I mean, like, he hasn't done anything in wrestling since then. Obviously, he went to UFC, which can help some candidates. Like, it helped Brock Lesnar, but it sure didn't help him. But yeah, I mean, like, he feels like he needs to, if he can like stay above 10%, you know, it feels like a return to wrestling is probably going to happen. So maybe he can, you know, really like earn himself back into people's good graces a little bit more with a good run. But yeah, I don't know. Like the case on CM Punk is really soured. Can you give me your best CM Punk case, Rich?
Well, I mean, many years ago, I wrote an article, and I basically, when I first got a ballot, I was a Punk voter because this was like in 2014, like right as he was still hot, and right as he had left WWE, and at that time, it felt like, holy shit, this guy is like, he just came off an incredibly hot run. In WWE, he's the talk of the wrestling business. Like, he's leaving now, and my God, the world is his oyster, and he can do anything he wants, and all this sort of stuff. And now it's 2019, and like, he just kind of sucked at UFC. He was, kind of a draw there, but like just an awful fighter, way in over his head. He hasn't really latched on with any pro wrestling company. Now there's rumors that he's just going to find his way back, in terms of starting at the Fox show and then probably just work his way back up to WWE at some point again. And it's just like, it all feels like, oh man, like this guy. And this is a huge reason why I don't like voting for guys when they're in the midst of their careers still. And we're going to talk about it when we go to Japan as well. And not that I don't, and people always say, well, like, just think of a guy, like, if he retired today, would he go in? And I'm like, yeah, a lot of guys would. Like CM Punk, I think if CM Punk in 2014 said, fuck it, I'm out, I'm never wrestling again, which he essentially kind of said, but we all were like, no, he's lying, he'll be back some way or form, in that case, I maybe would have said that. I would have said, yeah, Punk is coming off a huge run. I love his in-ring record, I love all this, but this is why I think you need to kind of wait and see what happens, because guys can negatively affect their case as well. And that, I think, has absolutely happened with CM Punk in terms of what he's done to friends, former friends and allies, which is not insignificant either. I mean, this is voted on by fellow wrestlers. This is voted on by people that are in locker rooms and all that sort of stuff. I mean, there's no question that he has probably not endeared himself very well to a lot of former wrestlers. And you can see it in the drops. I mean, he's down, 10% from where he was 3 years ago, and he's down 12% from where he was last year. Like, he has had precipitous drop in terms of where he's been. And I think it's a lot of it is because it's like, no, this guy's kind of an asshole. Like, and that you shouldn't play that game with the Hall of Fame, but it's part of it. Like, these people, you sit down, you make your ballot, and you think about guys that deserve to go in. And if, like, you don't like a guy and you think the guy's kind of a dick, or he's screwed over one of your friends, or he's done all this sort of stuff, it's going to negatively affect you. And I think that's a big thing that's happened with Punk too, is that, like, he hasn't done anything in wrestling. The UFC thing was a miserable failure. He didn't, he talked a big game about how he's going to, change wrestling and do all this sort of stuff and speak out against the man. And all he really did was just kind of fuck around in UFC. And now he's just going back. So a lot of the stuff that you were sort of hoping to get out of CM Punk and kind of projecting with CM Punk never really happened. And that's a big reason why I like kind of like waiting for these things and waiting and seeing before you vote a guy in, in the midst of their career, because Punk had a much better case, 4 years ago than he has today. And it's strange to say that, but it really is the case. I think he's negatively affected his case, and we see that in the numbers as well. So I'd love to make a case for CM Punk. Like, great in-ring wrestler, one of my favorite in-ring wrestlers ever, a profound, big star, quote unquote, for a few years. But I don't know if that's enough to make a case for him. I think if he did go in, he'd be at this point one of the weaker guys to ever go in, because the longevity is just really, I guess, not quite there. I guess if you count some of the Ring of Honor stuff, and it's hard to really tell if he was a big draw in Ring of Honor. It's hard to really tell anybody that was a big draw in Ring of Honor. And yeah, the in-ring stuff was fantastic. I think he had a really good run, in WWE and in Ring of Honor and whatnot. But I don't know if that's enough to make his case there. So no, I mean, this is a guy who I thought, at the time, 4 or 5 years ago, had a profound effect on wrestling, but now we kind of see that he really doesn't. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a good case for CM Punk, and I will not be voting for him this year.
Can you imagine an alternate universe where he leaves WWE and like latches on with Ring of Honor or New Japan or something? Like, imagine if he's Cody, basically.
Right, and that's what I thought. I mean, he was Cody before Cody, and that's where I say, like, in 2014, if you weren't around for this, if you weren't following it, that was the idea. Is Punk is leaving WWE once he gets out of this contract. This guy, this world, he can do anything in wrestling, and he's going to be able to bring his aura and star power to any company he wants to bring it to. And then he chose UFC, and it was like, all right, cool, he's gonna have fun in UFC or whatever. But then when he's done with that, he's gonna go and do. And now we're here, and it's just like, oh, I guess you're just gonna do a studio show for WWE then. Okay, cool. All right, well, see ya. And it's just like, it's weird. Like, maybe that's me projecting my sort of thoughts on him and what I wanted him to do. And maybe that wasn't fair, but like, he felt like such a hot star at that time. And now he feels like just a dude that like, I don't know.
I just think if you basically give him Cody's post WWE career, like, there's no argument to me right now for Cody for the Hall of Fame,
Right.
But like CM Punk has that history in Ring of Honor and WWE. Sure. So if he then, that Cody does not have. So if he then leaves WWE and does what Cody did after WWE, then he would have a real case here. He'd be like,
oh, no doubter. Yeah.
Sure. He was like a big star in WWE. Then he left WWE and he fucking revolutionized wrestling. It's like, no, he just left WWE and got his ass kicked to UFC. And now he's going to go do some talking for Fox Sports. I mean, look, even if he goes back, the only thing I can see is if he goes back to WWE is like a huge difference maker. Like, he's in a WrestleMania main event, and he's like another Brock, where like, they only use him sometimes, but he's, clearly bigger star than anybody on the roster every time he appears. I'm sure that will help him. But even then, I don't know if I would vote for him at this point.
For sure.
I just feel like he wasted too many. He wasted too many years.
Yeah, exactly. He like 6 years of his prime were just wasted in doing nothing, and it's just like, oh, okay. Like, and that's what I say is like, yeah, without those 6 years, at that point, you're like, oh man, this guy's got the trajectory, he's got the the aura around him, and then like 6 years of nothing, and really in some cases negative, energy put towards your wrestling career is going to hurt your ballot, and that's why he's a guy that if he had gotten in, in 2014. Now people would kind of look and go, oh, geez, what a terrible, addition to the Hall of Fame to put CM Punk in there. But it wasn't as insane as it feels at that time, too. And that's where I do make the case that I think guys can hurt the Wrestling Observer. I think they can hurt their Hall of Fame status by having a couple bad years or some really, really bad years. So,
yeah. Here's the other thing I want to mention, too, because we haven't talked a lot about predictions. I think he will go up this year because I think his name has been in the news so much that I actually don't think he'll drop off the ballot. I think he'll get back to like 20%.
Mm-hmm. I would guess that too.
Yeah, but I don't think he'll actually get in or really even come close. Edge up next. This will be his 11th year on the ballot. He received 50% of the vote. So is he in? What is the thing again? So you have to get 50 to 50
the 1550. So he's got a few more years till that. Yeah, 15 years on the ballot. If you don't get over 50% after that 15 years, then you're off the ballot. So he's good for right now. But
okay, but he got exactly 50% last year anyway, so he's very close to getting in. That was up 1% from the previous year when he got 49%. And that was also his all-time peak of 50%. So he debuted at 22% in 2009. Edge is a guy who's clearly helped by, the Dave Meltzer clearly wants him in. Dave Meltzer loves him some Edge. You always say an Edge in a ladder match, man. It's like,
there's nothing he loves more. Yeah,
nothing he loves more. I don't really, I don't really see the case, honestly, for Edge. He was a good heel, in his time, like he was a good heel in like a good antagonist to go up against John Cena, but he never really struck me as like a Hall of Famer. I don't know. Do you disagree with me on this? Do you think Edge
I'm right with you. Yeah, I'm right with you on that. It's a guy that you can never really quite get and I've kind of done some research on it. I've done some studying on it and trying to see like, all right, let me see this case for Edge. And I liked Edge. I was a big fan of Edge, but at no point did I ever think he was like a Hall of Famer. And most of his best matches, he's one of 6 guys in there. He's one of 8 guys. You know what I mean? Like that. He's the top matches that Edge is in are usually also involving the Hardys and also involving the Dudleys or whatnot. And he had some good singles matches in terms of stuff with like Cena and some other ones here and there that were solid enough matches. But yeah, in terms of like a draw, I mean, I don't know that you can really make a case for that. There was, he had sex with Alita on Raw, and that had a lot of ratings. But I don't know, like that was one segment, and I don't know if that was the one that really was. I'm going to say like, hey, he's definitively a draw because people wanted to see his girlfriend naked. So that's I don't know. I guess you can count that as one thing, but no, I don't. Yeah, the case for him is a little loose. It's really. I don't know. His case is based off the fact that he was a big deal in WWE for so many years, and that's going to be one of the issues we're talking about a guy with like a Randy Orton too. Is it's like, how much stock do we give in like this guy was perceived and pushed as a big star, but was he really a big star? Was Edge really anything, or was he just a 19-time world champion because like that's just what they did and they liked him and they booked him for it? But was he ever a business mover? Or was he just there for a while? Was he just the guy pushed for a while? And that's one of the criteria that Dave mentions as well is like longevity is one thing. If you have hot few years or whatever, that can count. But like being around for a long time and just being like fine isn't a case either. And that's where I can get with Edge too. Yeah. I
want to mention this too, because you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned the 19-time world champion. You have to, if you're like talking about WWE and you're talking about people after like 2001, you have to be honest with what that means. You have to like, basically you cannot bring that up as a criteria for a Hall of Fame. The fact that like the world titles, first of all, there were 2 of them after 2001 for most of the period, just like there are now again. And like it just doesn't mean anything. Like it doesn't, it means like it means like they decide to make him world champion. That's it. Like, it doesn't mean that the guy was the biggest draw. It doesn't mean that he, really meant anything for business. It's just a thing that they did. I mean, fucking Jack Swagger was world champion at one point. That's the one I always love to bring up, because there's no way you could ever make any case that Jack Swagger was ever the biggest star in World Wrestling Entertainment, but he was a world heavyweight champion at one point. And, you just have to we all have to be honest with what that means in a modern WWE context. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. So you can have the fact that you have X amount of world titles. I mean, it's irrelevant. It's just that's what they just, because titles were moving. Like back in the day, it used to be, hey, we've bestowed this man the world championship because we believe he'll draw for us and he'll do all this sort of stuff. And in the mid 2000s, it was, well, we want Edge to win the title tonight, so Edge is going to win the title tonight.
And to be clear,
tomorrow, and
it still means something in Japan, and it still means something. Sure. Maybe it'll still mean something in AEW. We don't know yet for them, but like, in WWE, it doesn't mean anything.
Right. And so I would almost argue that like these days, it's starting to kind of mean something a little bit more again. But like in the mid 2000s and the late 90s, there's it means absolutely nothing. Guys had 15 rank. I mean, he is like, if you look at his titles, I mean, Edge is like a 15-time Intercontinental Champion, an 11-time tag champion. Like he's got all these things. And it's like, yeah, but like, I don't know. He was just there and that's what they did. So it's like, you can't really give, a ton of credit for that. So now Edge is a very loose candidate for me, and I would hate to see him go in, and starting to think he might actually go in.
I think he will go in, but it's going to be another bad one. But I think he will go in. I mean, he's a Hall of Very Good. I mean, that's what he is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just not a Hall of Fame. The Hardy Boys. Speaking of Hall of Very Good, their first year on the ballot. I will be. This is one of the ones where I just don't see any case at all. Like I don't like Jeff Hardy on his own has more of a case than the Hardy Boys, to me at least. I don't really know what the Hardy Boy case is. I mean, they were, they sold a bunch of merchandise. They were a good tag team in the 90s. They were influential, but they would never, they don't have the longevity. They were not top stars. I mean, when they were like I said, they did sell a lot of merch, but like they were not pushed as main eventers as a tag team. Because that's what they're supposed to be, right? This is supposed to be the Hardy Boys as a team. You're not supposed to talk about Jeff and Matt's singles careers. So the Hardy Boys as a team, they almost have no case to me. Like they sold a bunch of merchandise. That's their case.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a weird one again. And Dave's been doing this with a few. He did, we'll talk about it later in the US with Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson with JJ Dillon, which is like another extra caveat to that. And even in Japan, when we talk about Tenkoji with Tenzan and Kojima, it's like, you have to vote for them as a tag team. And it's like, if you look at the tag teams that are in the Observer Hall of Fame right now, it is the teams that are definitively known as tag. It is the Road Warriors. It's the Rock and Roll Express. It's the Midnight Express. It's the guys where you can't split those guys up. Like they make sense only together. But Dave has gotten in this thing now where he puts these guys both in, and I'll make the case when I talk about Tenkoji, but like, I think both guys have a better case separate than they do together. Like, I would honestly listen to a case for Jeff Hardy on his own more than I would listen to a case for Jeff and Matt Hardy, the Hardy Boys. I would almost listen to more of a case for Matt Hardy on his own than I will for the Hardy Boys together. So that's one of these weird things where it's like, I think both those guys have good cases. If you said, hey, look at Jeff's singles career, look at what he did in TNA, look at the draw that he was here, look at the single stuff. Oh, and then he also has the tag team. That's cool too. And then you look at Matt and you go, okay, look at the broken Matt Hardy stuff. Everything that Matt's done. And then also the tag team as well. But the problem is when you do the tag team, you can't say the broken Matt Hardy thing. You can't say Jeff Hardy's run in TNA. You can't say Jeff Hardy is a champion on SmackDown, drawing pretty big numbers there with CM Punk. It has to be the tag team. And when it has to be the tag team, it's like there's no case for them. There's absolutely no case for them. And honestly, when you talk about longevity, the Hardy Boys, unless you count their fucking job matches, for 7 years on WWE TV, like the Hardy Boys are what,
3 years?
Yeah, like mid 1998 to 2001, and that's it. And then that's done. And then, a little bit of a pop-up back, in TNA and a little pop-up back in WWE. But essentially by 2001, that tag team is basically done. And now those guys are just creating their own sort of resumes on their own. So yeah, I think there's absolutely zero case for them as a tag team. Really weirdly though, because there is more of a case for them as single stars. So it's really strange the way they distinguish.
I would definitely listen to a case for Jeff Hardy, especially, who I think would have a huge case for influence, as fun, and along with like maybe in-ring or drawing. But yeah, Jeff Hardy, I think, would have a case, whereas the Hardy Boys, I don't think have a case at all. So the Junkyard Dog, his 6th year on the ballot, he got 48% last year, which was up a lot from 31% the previous year. That was actually his peak, 48%. He debuted with 16% in 2014. I don't really have a lot of strong strong takes on the Junkyard Dog. I know this, for some people, this is like, I don't know, they're Waterloo or something. Where they're like, they're very like, especially just going after Dave Meltzer. You know, they're like, they think Dave basically destroyed his case for all that junk food dog stuff and the Observer back in the day. But look, I don't have a lot of strong takes on him. I didn't grow up watching him. He was just before my time and in territories I didn't watch. So, and I'm you know, as will be the theme when we go back here, U.S. territorial wrestling, not exactly my wheelhouse. So I can't really tell you a ton of takes here. But you got any Junkyard Dog takes, Rich?
Yeah, I don't have a ton on Dog, and he's one of those cases very similar to like Big Daddy in Europe, who we're not going to talk about, but where I don't know that I feel 100% responsible or 100% like able to say, hey, here's what Junkyard Dog definitely meant to these people at this time or whatever. Because if you lived in the American South in the 80s or whatever, you lived in Louisiana in that area, like he's a god. Like he is everything. He is such a huge deal. I have a guy at work who anytime I mention Junkyard Dog, he's from like Texas. He bounced between Texas and Louisiana or whatever, but he was prime like mid-South in that era. And like Junkyard Dog is his like favorite wrestler ever. And it's like, yeah, I can't give you that same sort of understanding of what he means to me, because the Junkyard Dog that I watched was the guy in WWF TV that was like, you know, fine, and he was okay, and he was kind of, at this point, kind of probably already past his peak a little bit, and you know, obviously the stuff in WCW was pretty horrendous as well, and that's at the point where his career was basically over. And you know, I went back and watched the old stuff, and yeah, it's like, yeah, good wrestler. I mean, I can obviously tell the crowd as a connection to him, but I feel like he's one that's just so. It's weird because the people that feel passionate, like you said, he is everything to them, and they're just upset that he doesn't get in, and they try to sell it to people like me, and I listen. I really do. I try to listen. I try to go, yeah, but I can never get in that same mindset. I can't tell myself, yeah, Junkyard Dog was a huge deal, because like I don't know. I watch stuff and it doesn't click with me. But I wasn't alive in that era. I wasn't living through this. I wasn't going to those shows. I wasn't talking with people at that time. So you try to do your best with this Hall of Fame to kind of wrap yourself around this guy's career and this guy's life and all that sort of stuff, and try to say, okay, well, yeah, he must be, because people tell me that he was a big deal. And it's like, I just don't feel comfortable 100% voting for Junkyard Dog at this point, because I don't know that I can make the case on my own. It's just me telling people that he's got a case. And that's one of those issues that I have. So hopefully, because I wouldn't be upset if he made it in. You know what I mean? Like, I would not be upset at all if enough people that decided that Junkyard Dog deserved to go in vote him in. I have no problem with that. It's just, I don't know that I'm going to be one of the people that votes him in, just because I don't know that I have I can wrap my head around how significant he was, because it's just, you know, without living in that era, without living in that region at that time, it's tough to make that case. You know, I'm from, you know, Chicago, and I'm, you know, 10 years, you know, I was 10 years, you know, past him, you know, his prime by the time I was watching wrestling or whatnot. So it's like, I don't know. He's really tough case to make. I hope he does go in at some point, because he is, you know, profoundly important to a lot of people. I just don't know that I'm going to be the guy that's going to vote him in, though, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. And like, you and I are about the same age, you know, I think almost exactly the same age. So we both just like, and I think we both started watching wrestling around the same time too, right? Like mid-90s.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, it was just a little before our time. It's people a little bit older probably that, you know, would really know. Kerry Von Erich, speaking of guys a little before our time probably. 8th year on the ballot. Last year he got 19%, which was up 3% from the previous year. He's a weird one. He was on 98 and 99, where he got 25% in 98. That was like the very first year, I think. They did the Observer Hall of Fame. And that was actually his peak at 25%, where he dropped off the following year. Then he was on again 06, 07 and dropped off. And then, now he's on again 2016 through present. Kerry Von Erich, I don't know. Again, another one that's like, I'm not going to have a ton of takes on. What do you think about Kerry Von Erich?
Yeah, he's another guy that, like, you know, people make the case again for him. And if you lived in Texas and you're a world-class fan or whatever, the Von Erichs and the importance of the Von Erichs and all that sort of stuff, even with all of that, he's not making it. You know, like, even with all of that and those people supporting him, you look at his numbers and they're still just not very good, because he wasn't you know, of all the Von Erichs. Yeah, he maybe had the highest potential peak, but didn't really reach that. And in-ring was bad. His promos were bad. Like, a lot of the stuff with Kerry was bad. And you know, he did a lot. I mean, he you know, he is a you know, an important figure in pro wrestling history, but I don't know that he's a guy that deserves inclusion in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. And even people that are you know, of that era, that grew up in that era, that grew up in that do all that sort of stuff, they still have a tough case. You know, they have a tough, you know, challenge making a case for Kerry Von Erich. So yeah, I'm not voting for Kerry, and I don't. Yeah, I think he's probably. I don't know if he's going to drop off this year, but I think pretty soon he's probably going to drop off yet again. So.
All right, the next one I do have some takes on. Randall Orton, his 5th year on the ballot, 35% last year, up 12% from the previous year. He debuted at 15% in 2015. Last year, that 35% was his peak. Did you hear that amazing audio Dave Meltzer did where he compared him? He basically compared him to Tetsuya Naito over the course of a bunch of different categories and said Naito is better than every single one. At the end was like, I'm probably going to vote for Orton, though.
I know.
I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, look, I am going to try to say this as nice as I can. If you vote for Randy Orton, I don't know what you're doing in this fucking hall. Like, what are we doing? Saying a career... Like Randy Orton, here's why Randy Orton should be out in a Hall of Fame if you're voting for Randy Orton. You're basically saying, because WWE likes this guy, I'm putting him in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Because I don't know what other fucking criteria he has. He's not a great in-ring worker. You know, he's the king of the 3-star match, basically. And I think even lower in the past few years. You know, he's very, very boring to the point where people like him because, he's what wrestling's supposed to be. Now he's fucking boring, and I don't understand. Like, look, he did have a couple of years where he was really good. I'm going to be fair. Like the Christian matches were really good.
Yeah, 2011.
Like some of those Mark Henry matches were like shockingly good. And I would say that was more Mark Henry than Randy Orton. But anyway, I'm not going to say he's always been terrible, but the last, fucking 5 years or something, he has been really bad. And I don't think he was really, and early on, I don't think he was really, like those, go back and watch those Triple H Randy Orton matches. They don't hold up at all. I'm talking like his original run. So yeah, in ring, I don't think he's close to Hall of Famer. Drawing, I would love to see an argument that he's a Hall of Fame level draw. I've never really seen one that makes any sense as far as I don't think he was ever a big ratings mover.
No. I did a study many years ago as well, and Dave actually, put that up in the Observer and always talk about it as well, where I went back and looked at a lot of pay-per-view numbers, and early on in Orton's career, there was some noticeable differences, and then by the third John Cena Randy Orton match, it no longer mattered, and it never mattered again for him ever again. It's just, yeah. And that was 2008, 2009, so pretty much from that point till today, he has not made any difference whatsoever in business.
And the last thing I would say about influence, if anything, I think he's had a negative influence because he's the ultimate poster boy of WWE's whole thing where it's well, are you a son of a former wrestler? Come on down. And it's that's not good. Basically his influence is nepotism. I don't think that's really a good thing. So, I don't know. I think it's this is one of the weakest cases. And if he gets in, he will be up there with I don't know, fucking Nakamura. It's one of the worst Hall of Famers in the entire WWE at WWE and the Observer Hall of Fame. He could be a WWE Hall of Famer.
Oh, he's a first ballot WWE Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
I'm exactly the same. The in ring is, and I probably like some Orton matches more than you do. I liked his early run a little bit more than maybe you did, but there's no question that he's got 10 years of just fucking boring as shit matches. And these days I actually kind of find them admirable because it's this guy knows he's so Teflon and knows that he can just go out there and have the most bullshit boring matches ever. And no one's going to say anything. And he's going to get pats on the back as he comes through the curtain. And he knows it too. You know what I mean? He's not even trying to have great matches anymore. He is well aware that he just has to do the bare minimum, exactly what they want. He knows how to play the game perfectly. He's one of the smartest wrestlers maybe ever. Maybe okay, if you want to give him some influence category, he's really smart at making that company think that he is an important figure in their history. The current thing going on right now where he is basically being yeah, me and Cody are friends. Yeah, I'd love to work in AEW. He's never going to AEW. You're kidding? I'm sure he called Cody and said, hey, Cody, I want a new contract. Can you say you want me? And Cody's yeah, sure. All right, dude. So he is basically going to work his way in and worm his way into a huge contract with WWE just by mentioning the name Cody Rhodes. And that is a masterful job by Randy Orton as well. But yeah, ultimately though, there is absolutely zero case for him in the Hall of Fame, I would say, other than he's been around a while. That's his case, is he has been here and he's wrestled a lot of matches over the last 15 years or whatever. But yeah, there's nothing on the draw that you can really point to. in ring, even at the best, even if you want to make the best possible case for Randy Orton in ring, like what are you looking at here? You're looking at just like 10 matches or whatever that really stand out amongst the pack. So you can't really do that. And yeah, like you said, influence or significance of pro wrestling history. I mean, if you went and asked your parents who Randy Orton was, they'll have no fucking idea. You know?
Yeah, they have no one knows who the fuck Randy Orton is. Except for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for us dorks. No one knows the fuck Randy Orton.
Right.
And what I was just thinking about in my head too, by the way, when I said they always push him as a top guy, that's not even true. Didn't he go like three or 4 years without being pushed even close to the main event?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They cycle in and out whenever they decide to or whatnot. So yeah, it's not like he's this ungodly dynamo that they just can't resist. It's like, yeah, they're just like, Orton, you're up now. All right, cool. Like have a little run here. And yeah, even when he does have those runs and yeah, they're not. No, I mean, this is a guy who has made no discernible effort to really stand out amongst the pack over the last 15 years. So yeah, he definitely does not deserve inclusion.
I'm looking at his cage match profile. He was fighting for the U.S. title last year. Mm-hmm. That's very recent. 2018, fighting for the U.S. title. He was United States champion. I mean, obviously 2011 he was still a big deal, but he was, there was that whole period where he was feuding with his own stable. And, I don't know if that was that big a deal. I'm looking at, what he was injured for a while, I guess, because there's a big gap here. I don't know. I mean, he was, kind of just a guy for a while in this decade. So, obviously then he turned heel. And then, I mean, that fucking run, remember the fucking Daniel Bryan feud run? That was awful.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really awful. Some of the worst stuff they ever done when he was, that authority heel. So, I don't know. I think he has no case at all. And I just don't. If he ever goes in because Dave Meltzer talks him up, it's going to be kind of a tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm with you.
Rick Martel, his second year on the ballot. He debuted last year at 15%. Not a guy I got a ton of hot takes on again, so give me some hot Rick Martel takes.
Oh, I got plenty of them. I don't have any of them. Yeah, he's fine. I like Rick Martel a lot, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Hall of good, not even very good.
Hall of fine.
Yeah, he was good. Hey, Rick Martel, good dude.
Rick Martel, yeah.
I like Rick Martel a lot. I like the model a lot. He's just not a Hall of Famer. So that's my hottest of hot takes. There is good dude, not a Hall of Famer. So
Sergeant Slaughter, his 16th year on the ballot, so he's one who could drop off if he goes under 50%. Mm-hmm. I guess he had exactly 50% for him last year, so people rallied around him to keep him on the ballot at least, but not to get him in. That was up 9% from the previous year. That was his peak. This peak of is 50%. I could definitely see Sergeant Slaughter. I understand the case for him, even if I didn't, I wasn't a huge fan or I didn't, watch his peak or anything. But he's one of those guys. We talked about the parent test before. Your dad probably knows who Sergeant Slaughter is.
Right, for sure. No, he's definitely a dude that I have a little kind of a check mark next to look a little bit more into this year. I mean, he's a guy that I was on the fence about voting for last year. I ended up not pulling the trigger on that, but this year is one where I can maybe see myself doing it because, you watch some of his old stuff, and I think that's really, really helped. As I said, okay, the Sergeant Slaughter that I know and that I watched was the 1991 Sergeant Slaughter who came back and was kind of fat and kind of old and just doing stuff with Hogan and the Iraqi thing and all that. And that was a complete bomb on all levels whatsoever.
Well, I will say that match with Hogan is shockingly good.
It's okay. It's not bad, but
I think compared to some of those other Hogan matches,
sure. And that's what I mean. That does kind of help a little bit because then you go back and watch the old Slaughter stuff, the early 80s stuff. You see fuck, this dude was pretty goddamn good. I don't know if it's enough of an in-ring case, but that helped me say, okay, look, he's not a dud in ring. There is a case to be made for him in ring. And then you talk about draw, and then you could look at some stuff. And he was a guy that did break through into the mainstream with the G.I. Joe stuff and was a big enough deal to at least consider putting on there. Am I saying for sure that I'm going to vote for him? No, but he's definitely a guy that I want to look into a little bit more. And I have looked into the past few years. So I'm on the fence about Slaughter, probably leaning a little bit more yes than no, but I'd like to do a little bit more work here. But on this ballot, he definitely sticks out.
He's gonna get it. He's gonna get in. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think
the rest of his bout is so fucking weak that I think he and Junkyard Dog are both gonna be
right. People don't want to no votes on the entire category. So if you're looking at this, there was a lot of no votes on this that we were talking about. So if you want to at least use up your votes and want maybe the big haul as opposed to a small haul, Slaughter is a guy. Slaughter and Junkyard Dog are two guys that I think given where they're at and where they've been. You can make really good cases for them. So yeah, Slaughter's on my short list to go on this year.
Trish Stratus, her third year on the ballot, she debuted at 13% in 2017, was up to 20% last year. She was the one 2 years ago where we made a little bit of a case for her, and like people freaked out at us.
Oh, geez, I was just trying to say, like, here's my like hypothetical case, and people were going absolutely fucking haywire about it. I was like, I'm not gonna vote for her. Calm down.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think we need to do that.
Oh,
yeah, she was influential and stuff. She was but she's not a Hall of Fame level worker or a Hall of Fame level draw. So
that's it. Yeah, I got nothing. Yeah, we did that 2 years. Go back and listen 2 years ago for our. We went on like 40 minutes about Trish, and that's the only thing anybody remembered from the episode was like, "You guys said Trish was good." We're like, "No, we didn't. Like, we never said that. We never said that."
It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what you listen to, but sure.
We just hypothetically made the case for Trish. We didn't make the case for Trish. There's a very big difference there, but yeah.
Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson with J.J. Dillon. You alluded to this before. Their third year on the ballot. They got 43% last year, which was actually down 2% from their debut the previous year. Go ahead and give me the speech on this one, because it's a fucking weird one.
It's so weird. So you have to kind of, with the caveat again, similar to Jeff and Matt, this is Tully Blanchard, not Tully Blanchard, his career. It's Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. Again, not Arn Anderson's career, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. And it has to be with J.J. Dillon as their manager. So you can't even use the WWF stuff. You can't even use, well, hey, I love the, everything that they did. Yeah, exactly. I love the brain buster. I love the WWF stuff. Like, you can't use that because that's not what J.J. Dillon. So the fact that they got 43% last year is mind-boggling to me, because I don't think there's a single case to be made that this team deserves inclusion. And again, Arn Anderson, much stronger candidate on his own. Tully Blanchard, probably a stronger candidate on his own. I don't know. I mean, you're talking about 2 years these guys wrestled together in NWA with J.J. Dillon as their manager. 2 years. So in those 2 years, I don't know. Did they have enough in those 2 years that you said, oh, definitively, they're definitely there? I think it's like less than 100 matches or something. It's like, get out of here. What are you doing?
They're going to get in because people see them and they're like, oh, that's my childhood.
Yeah, basically. Four Horsemen, let's go. And
don't understand that what you're actually voting for. So no, I think they probably will get in. It's going to be another one of these ridiculous ones. The Ultimate Warrior, you can tell I want to get to Japan.
Yeah, so for sure. Let's go. Yeah, let's get all these guys out of here.
The Ultimate Warrior, the last one we have to talk about in modern U.S. Canada, thankfully. His 6th year on the ballot. He had 14% last year, which was down 4% from the previous year. His peak was actually his debut at 20%, so he's never been remotely close. I kind of can sort of, I mean, you can make a lot of the similar cases as you can make for Goldberg, where like they had this amazing peak. The problem is, I think, first of all, I think he was much worse in ring than Goldberg.
Oh, far worse.
Like a lot worse. Like the only Ultimate Warrior matches that were even remotely memorable in ring were like the Hogan match and the Savage match, where like, Pat Patterson probably had to like go over every single fucking move with him like 500 times in the ring that day before they actually did the match. But I don't know. I just don't. He has the sort of the draw argument, but like he was a bomb when they actually gave him the title. Like Goldberg was not a bomb when they gave him the title, So like Ultimate Warrior, he was a big star. People know who he is, but like when they actually gave him the title, he was a fucking bomb. And Bill Goldberg, that's the big difference to me. When Goldberg got the title in WCW, he was not a bomb. So I don't know. Even though Goldberg didn't always get the main event all the time,
right.
It just doesn't have that same like. He doesn't have that same like negative history that Ultimate Warrior has.
Right. Like with WCW, you can say like, well, they got Goldberg and then they didn't really know what to do with it. And they didn't really do anything. I mean, they kind of kept going on with what they were going to do anyway. It just happened that Goldberg had the title and they had, some bullshit stuff after that or whatever. But Ultimate Warrior, they put everything behind him. The idea was that Ultimate Warrior is our new guy to go. And it was a miserable failure and it didn't work. And yeah, I think I would watch, if you gave me an opportunity to watch a lifetime supply of Bill Goldberg matches and a lifetime supply of Ultimate Warrior matches, I'm picking Bill Goldberg 1,000 times. I would never in a million years pick any of the Ultimate Warrior class. I would always rather watch Goldberg. So yeah, in ring, I think Goldberg's got a more of a case there. I think overall is like you said, overall popping numbers and being a real draw, Goldberg's got a better case than Ultimate Warrior. I just think all across the board, he's got a better case than Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior case is I grew up and he was a big star when I grew up, kind of is the only case you can really make for him. And yeah, the WCW run, subsequent runs back in WWF, I mean, those were all horrendous too. So yeah, I don't think there's a single case to be made for Ultimate Warrior. So
yeah, I mean, he did draw some nice ratings when he came back to WCW, but that like it was terrible. It was like absolutely awful. And WWF, that 96 run was pretty much a total failure. So I don't know. Can't really make a case for Bill Goldberg, or for Ultimate Warrior, I mean. So thankfully we're done with America now. Let's get to Japan, which has a lot of interesting candidates that I'm excited to talk about here. We'll start with Akira Taue, who, this is his 7th year on the ballot. He was very close last year. He got 52%, a big jump, 18% up from the previous year. That was also his peak. So here's the thing about Akira Taue. I totally understand. I was not like someone who would consider myself a Taue voter if I had a ballot in the previous, like in the past, I'd be like, I don't know about Taue. But the more I think about it, it's like, if you're in that many of the best matches of all time, you probably have a pretty good work case, even though, people sometimes act like he was just a random guy, like standing there for these tag matches. But like, I just don't think that's true. I think he is one of the best tag workers, that ever lived. And the proof is kind of there when you go look at his matches. So I kind of feel like if you're one of the best tag wrestlers who ever lived, you probably have a pretty strong case right there to begin with. And, then on top of that, he was a huge star. He won all those tag leagues back when that was a big deal. He won those tag titles. He was one of the big four in all Japan that, like, he was, clearly the least popular before, but still popular. It's not like he wasn't popular. So I kind of think the more I think about Taue, I think I would vote for him.
Yeah, Taue I'm always on the fence about. He's definitely a guy that I have a check mark next to, because he's a guy that, like, I really try to watch. I try to really get it every single year with him, and I don't know that it ever quite clicks with me. It's anytime I watch those matches, it's always, everybody else in the ring really jumps out to me. And I'm like, man, those are the best ever. And then like Taue, yeah, he's a good part of those matches, and he's an important figure in those matches. But I feel like those other three, just every time I watch him, depending on who's in the match with him or whatnot, it always feels like he's the fourth of the four guys every single time. And again, that's like, no, it's not anything against him, because like we're talking about, he's probably in the ring there with three of the top wrestlers of all time. Like, and just being the fourth guy out of those four is not really necessarily means that he sucks or whatever. It's just like those other guys, anytime I watch, to say, okay, I'm going to watch and see how great Taue is, I just end up being like, man, fucking Misawa is so good. Like, I just love Misawa so much. And it always get kind of distracted by the other guys in the ring as opposed to Taue. So I try every year, and I'll do it again this year, where I just really dive into it and say, okay, is this guy, let me see the matches that eventually click with me for Taue. Let me finally find out if it works for me, and this might be the year where I finally can do it, because if I'm not going to use many of my votes on Modern US and Canada, which by the way I don't think I am, this is a real good opportunity for me to finally say, okay, it's now or never for Taue. Am I going to vote for him? I have the extra votes. I have the ability to do it. Will I vote for Taue? So I'm really going to put a big effort into it. It hasn't clicked with me before, but I'm going to try this year again. To figure it out with Taue, and I will listen to anybody's arguments or whatnot. There's been a lot of good ones, and I know Chad Campbell wrote an article for us many years ago about it as well. But yeah, I'm open to any Taue arguments you can make to me, because I will definitely listen to them. But yeah, I don't know if it's quite ever clicked with me in the same sense. But he's on my short list though, for sure.
I think, if we want to talk about accolades too, what still does mean something in Japan. I mean, he did win the top title in All Japan and Noah, and they were both very short runs with the Triple Crown and the GHC, but he won them both. And, not a lot of people won those titles.
Right.
And he won the Champion Carnival in 96, which is, again, not a lot of people won the Champion Carnival. He won the World's Strongest Tag Determination League twice alongside Kawada. The tag title 7 times when they're considered a big deal at the time. I mean, he was a big star. He was not just like some guy standing there, I guess. It's like, I think there's a clear case here, even if you don't think as highly of his in-ring as some other people. But that's I lean towards putting him in. The next one, Shima, his 5th year on the ballot. He got 24% last year, which was actually down from the previous year of 33%. His peak was 40% in 2016. Shima's a really interesting one, because he, in some ways, I can totally understand why people don't vote for him, because he does not have, very similar to Taue, he doesn't have like a lot of really, really, really high level singles matches. What he has is like a lot of high level tags again. And I think he's another guy you can make a strong case for as like one of the best tag wrestlers ever. From a drawing standpoint, I think if anything, he supported his case by leaving Dragon Gate and seeing how far and how fast it dropped for a while there. That I think definitely, is something you want to point to. As far as like the accolades and all that. He held every single title you could hold in Dragon Gate. And, he had probably some of the most legendary Open the Dream Gate reigns. I mean, he was just basically he was as responsible for the rise of that company as anybody. He has a huge influence argument when you look at guys like Ricochet, who would point to him as like such an important part of their careers. I could definitely see voting for him. I lean towards voting for him. I'm not sure it's like a total slam dunk, but I think at the end of the day, he's probably a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and I'm the same way as well. And one thing that always comes up when you talk about CIMA is people will say, okay, well, if you're talking about great in-ring worker, what are the matches? What are the definitive CIMA matches you have to watch? And in one case, it's like weird because nobody can ever really give you like the definitive, okay, these are the ones to watch. But I think that's also partly makes his case because it's like, I don't know, dude, like watch like anything in the last 15 years. It's probably good. Like, like that's sort of the thing that I always bring up is people are like, okay, what are the definitive CIMA matches? And I'm like, dude, I just go and watch anything with this guy. Like even until a few years ago, he was pretty much for the last 15 years, putting together incredible matches on a monthly basis or weekly basis. I mean, he's a part of some of the best tag matches ever. Yeah, maybe he is not the only guy in it, but like when you have that many great tag matches and that many matches that you can consider watchable, like that's got to count for something. Yeah, maybe he doesn't ever reach the high level as like a singles guy that some of the other ones do, but like yeah, it's you can't deny how important he was in terms of the in-ring and Dragon Gate and how great he was throughout the years. And then there's also the influence too, where like, yeah, the amount of guys that have kind of been under his, tutelage and the guys that have went to America and had pretty high heights because of CIMA and largely, he plays a huge role in their guy, those guys' careers, guys like Ricochet and guys like Pac and guys like their Pac, and guys like that. It'll take like 6 years for me to get the Pac thing together. But, there's guys like that, Matt Seidel, a bunch of guys that really, he had a profound, effect on their career. And then the fact that like, yeah, I mean, he is a big reason why Dragon Gate existed and Dragon Gate, for whatever you think of Dragon Gate, whether you like it or not, it's undeniable that for like, God, 2 decades almost now at this point, have been like one of the most stable companies in Japan and like just kind of doing their thing and become, being the second brand at any time, maybe third brand at their absolute lowest in Japan. And that's that's profound. I mean, that is a big deal to do that. And then you look at like the second he leaves, they just plummet like, and not even like a dramatic plummet in terms of like in-ring, in terms of creative, in terms of all this. It's just like, holy shit. Like once he's gone, like, and I'm not saying he's the only reason that happened, but it was pretty eye-opening to be like, oh fuck, like that's what happened. And it took them a little while to recover and get back. And now he's doing the stuff with OWE. He's in AEW. Like I think his case is only going to improve in the next few years, but he's still a guy that I definitely vote for. I think he absolutely belongs to go in, actually belongs in. And yeah, I will argue to the end of the day that like there's just he's just got something in every single one of those categories, and that's at the end of the day that's what this Hall of Fame is all about, is somebody that can sort of check all those boxes in some way. Maybe they're not overwhelming in any one, but he's really good in all three. So yeah, he's a no doubter for me.
And I've seen these arguments before too. It's like I don't know, like the drawing arguments where it's like, well, he didn't draw like 30,000 like Baron Von Dipshit or whatever, and it's like, look, he was clearly a draw at his level, and like he clearly was a draw in a Japanese promotion at a time when everyone else in Japan was not drawing. So like if that doesn't count for anything, I don't know what to tell you. Like, yeah, he wasn't on broadcast television in 1952, so he wasn't drawing, packed stadiums everywhere. But you have to look at like to me at least, you should be looking at the level of the draw versus what they're doing. I mean, he was on fucking Gaora. Like that was what Dragon Gate was on in Toriyama. They were on a satellite channel that 8% of the country got, and they somehow managed to make a thriving promotion that was like did really well and drew crowds in the rest of in Japan outside of Tokyo at a time when no one else could do that. So other than Noah and then like New Japan later on. So I don't know. I mean, they were doing well when New Japan was doing terrible.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, well, that's what I was saying. The stability. Like, I know that's not sexy argument to make, like, hey, stability, but like,
yeah,
God, I mean, the stability with him being one of the top stars in Dragon Gate for all those years, that's got to count for something, man. The fact that like All Japan ebbed and flowed, New Japan ebbed and flowed, Noah ebbed and flowed, and through all of it, there's fucking Dragon Gate just like chilling, being like, hey, let's go. We're seeing like DDT right now, sort of rising up and doing stuff, and it's just like there's Dragon Gate just like chilling, and the only time that it doesn't do that, the only time that it does fall is when he leaves, and it's like, okay, well that might be a thing, and that might be something to look at. So no, I think there's absolutely a good case to be made for CIMA, but no one's listening though, because he's only got 24%. He's down 9% year over year. So I don't know. I'll try, but yeah, I don't know.
Hayabusa, his fourth year on the ballot last year, he got 32%, which was down 5% from the previous year. His peak was actually his debut year of 2016 when he got 49%. Hayabusa is one for me where I don't have a ton of strong takes because I wasn't really watching his original run. I wasn't like a FMW person. I've definitely read a lot of good arguments for him, especially from like an influence standpoint. So do you have any what's your take on Hayabusa?
Yeah, so I really like Hayabusa, and I feel bad that I don't vote for him because he's like, a big part of like my early wrestling watching was, watching videos and downloading videos and this Hayabusa guy doing like these death matches or this crazy shit. And I remember, I think the first time I saw him was at ECW, and I was like, "Ooh, I got to find out more about this guy," because he jumps off the page. You see Hayabusa, you see his mask, you see the way he looks, and you're like, "Fuck, that guy's awesome! Like that guy's really cool." So he kind of opened my eyes up to a lot of pro wrestling that wasn't in America. So I give him a lot of credit for that in my life. But ultimately, though, I don't know that I hear the cases that people make, but ultimately it just doesn't. It doesn't click with me in the same way. Like I've watched a lot of his top tier matches and they're fun, they're fine, but I don't know that like I'd really consider him like in ring, that I would really check his box there. I think there's a lot of really fun Hayabusa matches. I don't know if they're very good or like, I don't know. Yeah, he's a weird case for me because like sometimes I watch a Hayabusa match and I'm like, that fucking rocked. And then sometimes I watch it and I'm like, I don't know, that didn't quite work for me. The influence thing, I'll hear that again too, but I don't know. It just doesn't click with me. Here's the thing with Hayabusa is like, I can really like a guy. I can think he's one of my, one of the wrestlers that I really, really enjoy watching, but not necessarily a Hall of Famer. And that's kind of where I'm at with Hayabusa. It's just like, I don't know. It's just, he's one of those guys that you say the name, you think about it, and he's just not an immediate yes for me. And I don't even have him on my short list either. And it kind of stinks because I think he's an awesome wrestler. And I again, if he made it in, I wouldn't be upset that he made it in. I'm not going to be the one that's going to vote for him though. It doesn't click with me. I just can't figure it out in my own head.
Up next, Jun Akiyama, 11th year on the ballot, 55% last year, up 8% from the previous year. Rich, I can't fucking believe we're talking about him 2 years later. How is Jun Akiyama not in the fucking Hall of Fame?
It's not because of me, man. I'm voting for him.
Let's just go over this really quickly because I'm going to get worked up about this again, even though I really shouldn't. You're one of the best wrestlers of all time. You were good from the fucking day you stepped into those goddamn blue tights or whatever the fuck you were wearing.
Literally good from day one, yeah.
The day you stepped into the fucking ring and you're not in the Hall of Fame. What the fuck? What the fuck? It's not like he made it by the fucking Tokyo Dome. It's not like this man was fucking doing it in the goddamn mid-card his whole career. I don't understand this one. I absolutely do not understand anyone who does not vote for Jun Akiyama. He's one of the best wrestlers of all time in ring. He was a top star. Like that Yuji Nagata feud was such a big deal. They were able to reference it like in All Japan last year, and like they're on the cover of fucking Weekly Pro again. Like he was a big star. If I'm not saying he was like the biggest draw of all time or like the ace of the company, but he was a huge star. So like, what are we doing here? Why the hell is Jun Akiyama not in the Hall of Fame?
I can't tell you, man. I vote for him every year, and I'm perplexed every year that he doesn't go in, and every year that he gets closer and closer and closer. I think he is easily of the Japan the biggest slam dunk candidate for me this year. I think the biggest slam dunk candidate and across the entire ballot this year as well. I mean, there's just absolutely no case to be made against him in terms of like you said, great from literally the first time he steps into the ring, and still today, like still okay, until like a year ago.
He was like, he had an amazing champion card run last year.
Yeah, which by the way, when we say step in the ring, that was 1992 and it's 2019 right now. So like, yeah, that's a lot of years of being pretty good. Yeah. And like you're saying, it's not like he just did it while doing, junior tag matches or whatever. It's like he did it while also being like in big main events, being a big part of Noah, All Japan. Yeah, he wasn't maybe the top guy in All Japan because they had fucking Masao and Kobashi and Kawada and whatever. They didn't quite need him, but like even in those late years of All Japan, like you could see him starting to kind of come up, and he moves over to Noah, and he's almost immediately one of Noah's biggest stars right out of the bat too. And then he comes and then he books All Japan, and he gets them back on the right track. He basically recovers that company from death. It's like, I don't know, what more do you need? I don't know what more you need for Jun Akiyama. So I don't know.
The man's gonna go like walk on water, and they'll be like, well,
yeah, it's not that hard.
He just already did that. So I don't know. Let's see if we can really. Did he walk on water like Kobashi walked on water? I don't know. It's like that's my favorite like anti-Akiyama argument. It's like, oh well, he wasn't as big a deal as Kenta Kobashi. I'm sorry,
yeah, a lot of people aren't. Yeah,
a lot of people. If that's the criteria, there should be this Hall of Fame should be like 5 people. I hate to tell you, but anyway, I mean, Akiyama feels like one we don't have to spend any time on because it's like he's a Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
it.
not gonna even. Yeah, I'm not even making any argument against it. Yeah, there's nothing you could say. It's just like, yeah, get him in there. What the fuck?
If you're listening to this and you vote, fucking vote for Jun Nakama.
Yes.
What are you doing? Kenny Omega, his second year on the ballot, 49% last year in his debut. So Omega, he's one of the I guess the four here of the current New Japan guys. We talked about earlier how we don't really like voting for guys that are active. If you're really going to put a gun to my head and say you have to vote for these people, I think 3 of the 4 are very strong candidates, and he's one of the 3. So, he's clearly a very strong in-ring worker. He was clearly a big star in Japan. He won the IWGP title. He won the G1. He was a big draw. He was even a big draw in DDT, just like Kota. There's not really a strong argument against him besides we should probably wait and see. Maybe just wait and see what he does. Although now I guess you could even put him in, maybe we'll be able to put him in the US category in a few years.
Right. Yeah. So Kenny's a guy that I haven't voted for in the past just because I have this inclination to not vote for guys as they're still kind of in their career or whatnot. But Kenny's a guy that I think this year I might just change that and just say, you know what? Yeah, he's probably in. It's this case where I don't know what he's going to be able to do in the next few years. It's going to tremendously hurt his case. Because, we've seen him go to AEW. We've seen success there. He's a big part of that. So that's, another notch in his belt. We saw what he did in New Japan, and that's kind of buttoned up for now, presumably. And yeah, that was, both tremendous in ring and tremendous for business. And DDT, that stuff there, both tremendous in ring, tremendous in business. It's just any thing that you look at, it's just he's there, man. He's a guy that I think has broken through the mainstream a little bit as well, where I have casual fan friends that know the name Kenny Omega, they know who he is, they've watched a lot of his matches, and none of them come away saying yeah, that guy stunk, or I don't quite get it. They're all yeah, that guy's pretty fucking great. It's we've reached a point now where I don't know that I can really say, oh yeah, well if Kenny Omega does this, he's going to really hurt his case. He's kind of a guy, I feel like he's pretty locked in at this point. So yeah, I think I'd probably vote for him this year. Definitely on my short list of guys to vote for. But yeah, I don't always feel comfortable voting for guys in the midst of their careers. But he's at a point now, like you said, if it's well, just fucking vote for him if you think he's going to go in. And if that's the case, it's yeah, dude, Kenny's going to go in. And we're talking about a few other guys in this list too that if I'm sort of forced to vote for these guys, I will. But in this year, because there's so many empty ballots and I'm not going to vote anything in Modern US and Canada, I can't make a case, I think, this year to probably vote in Kenny Omega. So.
Here's the other thing about Kenny too is obviously when I think about it too, he might still add to his Japan case even while he's in AEW because he's gonna have he's in a mixed gender tag match at DDT Ultimate Party, now even a big match, and that show is doing really, really well. Not that it's going to be hard to parse how well it would have done without him anyway, because last year's DDT show it's in November did really well too. But he's in the semi-main event, and the show is almost sold out for their setup at the Sumo Hall. So, if he goes in there and he might go in there and main event with Takeshita next year in Saitama, and if that does a better number than DDT did in Saitama in previous years, then you'd you'd add to his case. So I think he's pretty much already there. If you want to wait and see what he does in a few years, I think you could probably. I don't see him hurting his own case the way Shinsuke Nakamura did by going to WWE and just being a guy.
Yeah, right. At this point, I feel like whatever Kenny's going to do in his career, it's pretty well locked in at this point. So
the next guy, Kota Ibushi, the second of these 4 current New Japan guys, this is his 3rd year on the ballot. He only got 16% last year, which seems very low. Yeah. He's up 3% from the previous year. I mean, Kota might have a better case than Kenny. I mean, he was in people, I don't know if they understand what an enormous draw he was for DDT coming up. I mean, that DDT before Kota Ibushi was nothing. I mean, DDT before Kota Ibushi was an indie promotion. Not that he was as big of a part of DDT rising up and being able to run all the the Budokan and Sumo Hall and all these buildings as anybody. I mean, that he was the guy as far as being a big deal to non-DDT fans. And, he was such a big deal that he basically forged his own path into New Japan, which, before Kota Ibushi, there was no DDT to New Japan path. I mean, that would have been ridiculous. They're the comedy indie where you eat the curry off the guy's head. I mean, it's just not a thing that was happening. So like, I think it's almost impossible to overstate what a big deal he was for establishing DDT, being a big draw for DDT, being the guy that broke out and made people look at DDT. I mean, that's Kota Ibushi. And then he goes to New Japan. He's a humongous star there too. I mean, he was a junior for a while, but now he won the G1. He's about to, main event on 1-4. I mean, I think Kota, and on top of all that, he's one of the best in-ring wrestlers I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
so
like
I don't know.
15 years of great matches too in between there. Yeah.
I think Kota is pretty close to a slam dunk, but if you want to wait on him again, I can see it. But like, if he retired tomorrow, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's another guy that again, like I would probably feel more comfortable voting for him in 5 years as opposed to today. But the fact that he's on the ballot, that he only got 60% last year, I'm not worried about him falling off the ballot, and he would just be able to get back on a few years later too. Because by the way, if you do fall off, like if you do something significant, like they will put you back on there. So like, say Kota did fall off this year and then goes to 1-4 main events and has a great year in New Japan or whatever, he'd go back on. But I think this year we're going to see a huge jump for him. And regardless, like again, I would feel 1,000 times more comfortable voting for him in 5 years, just because I'll know, okay, that's Kota has put the stamp on his career. We know what it is right now. But even then, like right now, he's in there. He's got to be a Wrestling Observer Hall of Famer if you're really thinking about it. I mean, this year, if this year hasn't put a shining light on it as well, is that he finally signs with New Japan and then they finally go, okay, yeah, of course we're going to push you to the fucking moon, man. Now that you're here and now that we know we have you and we know you're reliable and we know you're not going anywhere. Yeah. So he went to G1. Now he's going to main event Wrestle Kingdom and all that. And yeah, it's just like in ring. There's a slam dunk case for him as an in-ring worker. There's a slam dunk case for him as a draw, even if it's not to the, like you said, the Baron von what the fuck or whatever, for the 50s. Like, DDT wise, I mean, he's that company. He's the reason that they are where they're at, these days in a lot of ways. And yeah, you can't ignore that. It's profound rise, that DDT has made in the last, 10 years or whatever. And a lot of that is because of him. And yeah, anytime he goes, they can main event New Japan shows with him. Even if when he wasn't signed, they were still main eventing New Japan shows with him because they knew that he would draw and that people would come and see him. So yeah, there's starting to be a lot less cases that you can make against Kota Ibushi. So I'm at the point now where I think I'm going to vote for him this year as well, because it's just like, what more do you need out of this guy?
Up next, an interesting one here, Meiko Satomura making her debut. I think I don't know about slam dunk, but I think she is a Hall of Famer, and people have asked me to sell you on this, Rich.
Yeah, go ahead. Because again, I'm not I don't really follow Joshi all that much, but I'm interested in hearing this case for sure.
So she was a huge star going all the way back to like the end of Gaia. She held the AAA title in Gaia. And then for the influence, like the positive influence, which is supposed to be a criteria, she along with Jinsei Shinzaki started Sendai Girls at a time when Joshi was basically near its fucking deathbed, where promotions were folding left and right, where I can distinctly remember being like online as a Japanese wrestling fan at the time, and it felt like we were witnessing the end of Joshi. Like it felt like we were watching Joshi die at the time. Like, okay, it was like every month, here's another promotion that's dead. Here's another wrestler that's retiring in their early 20s, which, isn't that uncommon for Joshi wrestlers anyway. But like, it just felt like one thing after another at the time. In that period, like everything was just going down, 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 down. And then it's like, well, here's Meiko Satomura and Jinsei Shinzaki, and they're starting Sendai Girls. And, Meiko wants to keep Joshi going. And it's like, well, I hope this lasts more than a year. That was basically my thought when I first saw that announcement. And not only is Sendai Girl still here, but, she's been a prolific trainer of wrestlers. She's trained, a ton of wrestlers that have turned into, stars on the level of Joshi, which talking about like Chihiro Hashimoto, who, has done more to bring in, young women, which is a category of fan that Joshi has, struggled with in recent years. They draw like such a different fan base from like a Stardom or another like or Tokyo Joshi, where, I was in that crowd 3 years ago to see her fight Aja Kong at Corkin Hall. And I saw like, they drew like that old school Joshi fan, but also like, they were like teams of amateur wrestlers, like high school girls there to cheer on Chihiro. And you do not see teams of high school age Japanese women at Stardom. Like that just doesn't happen. So she established this thing that like did more to preserve modern Joshi and save this historic scene. So I think her strongest category is positive influence. She had more of a positive influence on, Japanese wrestling than, all but a handful of people. In ring, I think she's also one of the best in-ring wrestlers ever. Like, as far as like having high-level matches for a long period of time, I think she's easily one of the top 50 in-ring wrestlers of all time. I think you could even make a case for higher. Where if you want to like quibble with it, you could quibble with draw because, no one in Joshi is ever going to be a huge draw. But like, as far as like popping numbers, even at that level, I mean, she went to, when she was like the outsider champion in Stardom, when she was the World of Stardom champion, like they did good numbers for Stardom. And, that the match with Io Shirai, the feud with Io Shirai for the World of Stardom title, like, that drew numbers, that drew like fan interest in the West. She's like, she had the Cruiserweight Classic run where she was treated as a big deal in WWE, which helped her and helped, the visibility of Japanese wrestling in the West. She's drawn, from what I understand, good numbers for like Eve and like promotions in the UK when she's gone over there. And she was the first woman to hold DDT's top title, the KOD Open Weight title. And that was like that I think is a big deal. Now she's like paved the way for women to be a big deal in DDT. We're at the point where her student Chihiro Hashimoto is going to be in the DDT equivalent of G1, the DO this year. So I just think the influence is there, the in-ring is there. Maybe you can quibble with the drawing, but I think to me she's pretty close to a slam dunk Hall of Famer.
That's good. Yeah, that's a great case there. I think for in ring, I'd like to, for people if they want to, you don't have to maybe list them all here, but if people want to send me stuff, whether it be on our Discord channel or at Voices Wrestling or whatever, send me some matches. I'd like to go back and watch a lot of the top ones and really study it because everybody that I've heard have made really good cases for her, and I want to get a little bit more educated on her in ring. For sure, before I definitively say if I'm going to vote for her or not, because first year on the ballot, I got to do my work. If I'm going to be a Hall of Fame voter, I'm going to vote in this region. I got to do the work. So yeah, I'm more than open to listen to any arguments, read any articles, and watch any matches as well. So send them my way. So
I'm going to tell you, go back and watch that Sendai Girls match with Aja Khan that I was at in 2016. I think it's like April. That's like that was probably my favorite match in the entire trip. It was just an awesome match, and like she has other matches with Aja Khan over the years. The Io Shirai matches are a big one. During that Stardom run, and there's a million other ones too, but like those are the ones that immediately come to mind for me, especially for recently. So and actually what she's in my fucking match of the year this year. I can't believe I forgot about that. Her and Sarai is currently my match of the year for 2019, a 5-star match. So I don't know if did you ever get around to watching it?
I haven't gotten around to watch. It's on my like mega catch up list or whatever. But yeah. For the Observer Hall of Fame, I do try to go back and watch a lot of this old stuff. So I will definitely add it again, and hopefully be able to watch as much as I can before.
But it's a good point. Like in my match of the year this year, like she's still doing amazing work in 2019. So even some people I don't think have the match that high will still tell you it's like 4 stars plus. So it's still it's a really great match. A really amazing match, and it's 2019. She's still doing it. So, Tenkoji, this is their 6th year on the ballot. They did 17% last year, which was actually up 4% from their previous year, and that's tied with 2014 for when they came on the ballot the first time as their peak. Oh boy, Tenkoji. Talk to me about Tenkoji. Right?
Yeah, this is similar to the Matt and Jeff Hardy thing. Like, if you wanted me to make a case for Kojima, I probably could. I could make a really good case for Kojima. Great wrestler, top title winner. Like, yeah, there's a lot to be made for Kojima. Tenzan, a little less so than Kojima. He won some titles. He was a top star. I don't know if in ring he can even in any way, shape, or form touch Kojima, but he was around for a while too. But like them as a team, there's no way that I can make that case for them. Like, they've been around for a while and they've had some fun matches, but there is just absolutely zero case to be made. These guys belong in this Hall of Fame as a tag team. Again, I'll make a case for Kojima on his own. I will not make a case for Kojima and Tenzan together. It's just, it's bad. And it's weird that this is how Kojima will probably he'll appear on the ballot this way. They'll fall off eventually. And then I don't know if he'll ever come back again, which kind of sucks because I'd love to have a real case be made or real argument to be made about Kojima. But yeah, I can't do it with Kojima and Tenzan. This is a terrible idea to put these two together.
I mean, you pretty much said everything that needs to be said about it. It's not good. Not a good idea. They weren't a big... I mean, look, you could even argue it wasn't even the most famous team Tenzan was in.
And that's the thing, too, that I don't get. Like, I said, with the other teams, it's like the Rock and Roll and the Road Warriors and those sort of guys. And it's like, yeah, of course. Like, those guys have to go in together. Tenzan and Kojima do not have to go in together. Tenzan has had other teams.
Shoten!
Yeah.
Shoten! I mean,
he also had 15 years of a career before this team even existed, or 10 years of a career before this team existed. And there's a lot of stuff in that 10 years that happened before that team existed. And Kojima has a ton that happened before that team existed, and then a ton that happened, in between that team existed. And it's just like the fact that they're put together and they're linked together on this ballot really stinks, and it takes away from both of their guys' cases. Because again, I think you can make a stronger case for both these guys individually than you can as a team. More so for Kojima than Tenzan. But still, I'd listen to somebody that made a Tenzan on his own case. I will not listen to anybody that makes a Tenkoji case. There's just not to be.
Yeah, I don't think I would vote for either one of them on their own, but they definitely have a stronger case than together. Tetsuya Naito, his third year on the ballot last year, he went up 5% to 21%.
You a big Naito fan or what? What do you think of him?
I think I am a big Naito fan.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So the Naito case, again, he's the third or the fourth guys that are like the current New Japan guys. I think he's pretty close to a slam dunk. The only argument I would see here against him is if you want to wait and see. I actually think, maybe this will surprise people. I think you could say he probably has a slightly less of an argument than Ibushi and Omega at this point, because, Ibushi and Omega both have DDT that they can point to, whereas Naito before 2015, before LIJ, basically, he was not a big star. They tried, and the babyface front did not really work. It didn't catch on. They pushed him, and I still think he has amazing matches before 2015. Not everybody even agrees with me with that, but I think he did have some really, really good matches, like the 2011 G1 final with Nakamura, the G1 final with Tanahashi, both some of the early Okada matches, the one of the Korakuen in 2012 and the Dome semi-main in 2014. A lot of those Ishii matches before LIJ were amazing for the Never title. So that he has a body of work there, but he was not a big draw before 2015. It just was not, it didn't catch on as far as what, and we're talking about late 2015 too, I should say. But since then, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I actually don't even have any doubt in my mind that, he's on a Hall of Fame run since the LIJ thing. He's the only guy to win back-to-back Tokyo Sports MVPs other than Okada, Tenryu, Jumbo, and Inoki. That's pretty amazing company, which should tell you exactly how big of a star he is in Japan. He only had a short run with the title, but he's won the G1 Climax twice, which is, again, a very exclusive club. He's held pretty much every other title in the company. And he's a gigantic star. If you've never been in a crowd in Japan, if anything, there's even more LIJ merchandise than you probably think there is. It's just everywhere when you're in. If you go to Sumo Hall, for a big New Japan show, it's just in the last 3 years, you're just in a sea of it. It's just everywhere around you, LIJ everywhere. So it really becomes obvious how big of a star he is once you see him there. And he's become a humongous star in America too. I was just at those shows last weekend, and he was right there with Okada for the most over guy in the show. So people love him. Again, you're in a sea of LIJ shirts in America now too. So I would vote for him now. I would totally understand if you want to wait even a few more years, but to me, I don't see an argument that he's not at least on a Hall of Fame trajectory.
No, I'm right with you. And I think the thing, I talked about Kenny and Kota are guys that I do think I'm going to vote for this year. Naito's a guy that I will vote for, but I want to see this year play out. Mostly because I feel like the potential is there. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I feel like he, like you said, with Kota and Kenny, you have stuff that they've done elsewhere, stuff that they've done before their big runs as of late or whatever that you can point to and look at or whatever. And there's some stuff with Naito too that I really, I was with you. I liked a lot of his older matches before the LIJ stuff. There's a lot of stuff in there that I really do enjoy, but I really want to see how this story ends with him in New Japan, if he goes to the Tokyo Dome and wins the title, and then if he has a run with the title, or if he does, whatever that next move is, if it is sticking with New Japan, if it is winning the championship, whatever it is on January 4th, I feel like at this time next year, I'll have a much clearer idea of what I want to do with Naito on the ballot. With that said, no matter what happens, I'm probably going to vote for him next year. I just have this weird thing where I just kind of want to see what happens in this next year. It's not that I'm saying I'm not going to vote for him. It's not that I'm saying there's no case to be made for him. There's absolutely a case to be made for him. But I feel like he has a chance to really make it like a no doubt case in this next year. And that's kind of what I want to see play out. I want to see if he wins that title at Tokyo Dome, if he wins the 2 titles at Tokyo Dome, if he, main events shows and they're huge deals. Like, absolutely he's on the trajectory. Absolutely he's on the path towards it. I would feel a lot more comfortable waiting a year and seeing what happens in this next year and then saying, okay, now he's definitely a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it now in my mind. But again, like, if no matter what happens, if he gets hurt and never wrestles again, at King of Pro Wrestling, and that's it for his career, I'm probably voting for him next year as well. It's just for this year, I want to wait one more year on Naito, and then I'll be able to definitively say one way or another. So that's my case to be made for him, is that yeah, I will do it, but it's just I just feel a lot more comfortable voting for him in at this time next year than I do right now.
Yeah, that's fair. And the other thing with Naito too is that I want to point out to Western people is he is, I think, of the 3, Kenny, Kota, and Naito, he's probably the biggest mainstream star because he has that connection to the Hiroshima Carp, where like they play his theme song and every time the baseball team, like, I think, scores a run or something.
Right.
And you will see random like celebrities that have nothing to do with pro wrestling, like doing the Naito like eye and like hand up pose. It's like he's broken through to regular fans in a way that I don't, or not regular, I mean like regular people in Japan in a way that I don't know. Very few people in Japanese wrestling have broken through to regular celebrity culture. So I think that is another another like feather in his cap too. So I wanted to point that out
for sure.
Tomohiro Ishii, the 4th of the current New Japan guys, and as I wrote in my article already, and this is first round about, by the way, I do think he has easily the worst, the worst case of the 4. But yeah, like Ishii, I totally get why Ishii is on this ballot. I mean, he's one of the best in-ring wrestlers maybe ever, and depending on how you feel about his in-ring work. I think at the very least, I think you would say, he's widely held to be one of the best in-ring workers ever. So he is very overwhelming in that one of those 3 categories. The problem is I just don't think he is nowhere in the other 2 categories. And that's what you have to admit to yourself with Ishii. I mean, there's really no influence argument for him. I don't even know what the influence argument would be. There's no drawing argument for him at all. He's never been put in that position. So I guess you could say, well, maybe he could draw if he did, but there is no drawing argument for Ishii. He's never going to be, he's not one of the top stars in the company. He's never going to be one of the top stars in the company. He's not a Hall of Famer as a draw or as an influence guy. It comes down to, do you think he's just so overwhelming as an in-ring wrestler that you have to put him in? And I understand that argument, and it won't surprise me if he gets in, but I'm not sure if he's there.
Yeah, I'm very conflicted about Ishii because he's a guy that, like, from a straight in-ring standpoint, he's like one of my favorite wrestlers ever. I fucking love Ishii. Like, he's just incredible to watch, and seeing him live is just a different atmosphere too. Seeing him wrestle live, and just there's so much with Ishii that I absolutely love, and he's a guy that I want so badly to vote for, but it's just, for whatever reason, I'm conflicted every time I look at this list, and I go, okay, I look at these Japan guys, and I look at Kenny, and I look at Kota, and those are guys that, yeah, I'm definitely going to vote for. Naito's a guy I want to vote for. Akiyama's a guy I'm going to vote for. Shima's a guy I'm going to vote for, and then I get to someone here, Ishii, and there's always this reservation. There's always this quick little, I don't know, and I don't know why I have that reservation about Ishii. I don't know why I don't immediately think Ishii should go on there, because he is so overwhelmingly great in the in-ring category. I really, truly think that. The problem, though, is I don't know. For whatever reason, I just never feel comfortable being like, yeah, boom, put him in there. I don't know why. I don't know why. And I guess it's because there's just not a lot else in those other categories in terms of Ishii. Like, influence-wise, there's nothing really there. In terms of draw, there's really not anything there. But you should be able to go in if you're overwhelmingly great in rings. So I should want to vote for him. I should want to get Ishii in there. I just could never feel comfortable about it, and I don't know why. It's one of these weird things. I so badly want to vote for him, and then I put the little check mark, and then I go, I have an eye, and I probably won't vote for him this year. And I don't know why. I don't know why it's not an overwhelming case for him, but he just feels weird. I don't know why. It's strange.
like to me, when I wrote that article, one of the things that stood out to me was like, for all the hype he gets as an in-ring worker, and he deserves most of it. He's never won Match of the Year, and he's never won Most Outstanding Wrestler in the Observer. And to me, like, if you're going to get in on just your in-ring only, like you have no case in the other two at all, I think you probably need to win one of those two awards at least once in your career. So, I just think like maybe, I feel like at the end of the G1, we always are like, oh yeah, she's one of the best ever. And he had another amazing G1 this year. Like maybe his best G1 ever, which is saying something. But like, he just doesn't do anything else in the rest of the year. And a lot of that is, again, the opportunity he gets. And like, he doesn't get as many opportunities as other people. Like, what is he doing right now? Nothing, and it's like, that the G1 in a lot of ways is his only opportunity to put that body of work together. But then he'll go so many months in a lot of these years without doing anything, or he'll be in a tag team with Yoshihashi or whatever, and it's just like, or Yano, and it's like I don't know. I just don't think he could just be a victim of opportunity.
Yeah, and he's weird too because he's almost like boringly good, where it's just like, hey, she had a good match, all right, cool, and then you kind of move on, and like it doesn't really, there's really good stuff, and in the moment you're watching it, you're like, that's fucking great, that's awesome, but like, at the end of the year, I don't know that everybody always goes back and remembers the best. It's weird. He's got such a weird case where, I'm right with you, where it's like, do I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world? I do, but like, do I think that he's a Hall of Fame level wrestler? Like, I guess I probably should, but for whatever reason, there's a disconnect there where I can't make that connection that he's a Hall of Fame level wrestler and he's one of the. It's weird. There's a weird disconnect with him, and I'm probably not going to vote for him this year. And I'd love to hear cases to be made for him, but it's just like, I don't know. For me, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable voting for him.
I will say he was like amazingly over at the US shows last weekend, which made me think a little bit like,
oh, they love him. Yeah, dude. Seeing Ishii live is insane. Like seeing him in America live, like this is a guy who almost maybe, and it's not like the Japanese crowd loves him too, but like the American crowds, for whatever reason, there's just a connection to Ishii. Just everybody loves that no neck guy. There's something about him. Seeing him live in America is awesome and super fun. So yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that because it feels somewhat notable that he was just like,
for sure,
so over. Yoshiaki Fujiwara, the last wrestler in this category, his fourth year on the ballot. He had 38% last year, which was his peak, and it was up 3% from the previous year. I don't have a lot of Fujiwara hot takes. He's not a guy I watched a ton of. I've seen other people argue very passionately that he should be in. So what do you have any Fujiwara takes here?
Yeah, I'm not a big Fujiwara guy. Like I don't love the style particularly that he's most notable for, and a lot of the hyped Fujiwara matches that I've watched, I don't know, they don't quite land with me. And I've heard people talk about the influence case, but it's a thing where, I mean, I'm gonna get people are gonna get very upset at me, but like just because you find you're the owner and you found a bunch of different companies that go out of business doesn't mean that you're necessarily like like I could start 15 businesses and they can all go out of business within 2 years. Does that make me like a positive influence on my local community? I don't know, not really. I don't think so. And that's kind of one of the issues I have with Fujiwara is like, he was a part of a lot of companies starting up, but all those companies are pretty much gone at this point. So and probably only lasted a few years or a year or so. So I don't know. It's just the style doesn't quite land with me. So in ring, it's gonna be tough to make that argument. The influence, I get it, but again, like I don't know if that's necessarily a positive influence. Is that he started a bunch of companies that went out of business? I don't know. People are going to get very upset at me for that, but I don't know. He just doesn't land with me. He doesn't click with me, and he's a guy that, again, if you voted for him and if he goes in, I don't know that I'll be upset that he's in. I won't say, oh, God, it's a terrible pick, but like I'm not going to vote for him. So,
okay, so that's the Japan category. We said we were going to go through non-wrestlers, but we were kind of running short on time and they have a bunch of questions to get through. So I'm just going to highlight a few non-wrestlers that I think have interesting cases and are in like times that we actually watched wrestling that maybe we could actually talk about. First of all, Gedo is on the ballot this year for the first time. What do you think of the Gedo candidacy?
Oh man, so the Gedo one is an interesting one. Again, like I got people upset on Twitter when I was just like, there's a big case to be made that like we should wait for Gedo and we should, and then people went nuts and flipped out. I'm like, oh my God, you've got to vote for Gedo. And like, I didn't say I wasn't going to vote for Gedo. I probably will vote for Gedo. I mean, he's obviously had, at this point now a 6-7 year run as Booker in New Japan, and they've, come from the doldrums of where they were in the mid 2000s and have kind of emerged as an international player, a worldwide player in the wrestling industry largely. as a result of a lot of his work. But, it's one of these things that's always weird with bookers in wrestling is like, at what point did it stop being Gedo and Jado? At what point did Gedo just get like 1,000% of the credit? It's strange in that way. Where now like Jado, it's like, fuck Jado, who cares? Like Gedo, it's all about Gedo because he's the guy, and he's the guy we see more, so we kind of attribute him. But like, I don't know, when I first started watching, it was always Gedo and Jado, and we still hear that Jado does have a big influence in the booking committee. But now Gedo has just kind of become the guy that people sort of point to. So essentially, when you're voting for Gedo, you're voting for quote unquote New Japan booking in the last 7 years or whatever, no matter who's sort of at the table or who's doing stuff, which is fine with me. That's cool. He's kind of the figurehead or whatnot. So given where they've been, like, yeah, I think there's absolutely a case to be made for Gedo to get in there, and absolutely a case that he deserves it. I mean, is it possible that in the next 4 years he does something profoundly stupid that tanks the company and they go out of business? Yeah, it is, and that might happen. But at this point right now, I think that there's a real good case to be made for Gedo, and I will most likely be voting for him, but I at least want to have a little bit more of a discussion about it before I just immediately say he's a slam dunk, no doubter.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where the company was when he took over and where they are now, I think that's probably a pretty strong case that he deserves to be in. The Crockett's. Do you have any strong takes from the Crockett's? Junior has been on here 13 years. Last year, he got 29%, which is down a lot from his peak of 43% in 2011. Crockett Sr. has been on 7 years, and he got 50% last year, which was not his peak, actually. 57% was his peak in 2015. What do you think of the Crockett's? Do you vote for either one of them?
Actually, I vote for both of them every single year because I don't understand why there isn't more of a case to be made for those guys. I mean, Senior in particular, he was a great wrestling promoter for many, many years and was able to kind of get his territory to be one of the preeminent territories in wrestling history. So it's like, I don't get what you won't make for Crockett Senior. So I always vote for Crockett Senior. And then Crockett Jr., it's like, NWA collapsed and it all fell apart, but fuck, like he was a big part of them rising up and becoming a huge deal and becoming, the number 2 promotion in the country and really competing directly with, Vince McMahon and WWF or whatever. Yeah, the fall was precipitous and maybe his business acumen wasn't great, but like, I don't know, I've got to give him a little bit of credit, I think, for at least getting to the level that they got. So I'm always kind of surprised when Crockett gets so little respect, and I think that might just be because of how it all ended, and some people kind of said like, oh yeah, well he was just kind of a terrible businessman and all that sort of stuff, but like, I don't know, I think some of the moves he made were pretty risky and maybe didn't play out when it was all said and done, but I think you got to give him some credit for the peak. So I vote for both those guys. I'm kind of shocked that they don't get more support than they do. So yeah, I'm a Crockett voter for both of those guys.
Jim Johnston, I think, is one you probably want to talk about.
Absolutely.
His first year on the ballot. Give me some Jim Johnston takes.
Well, so I have ever since I got a ballot in 2014, there's 2 guys that I have said that Dave should add to this ballot. It's Jim Johnston and Ted Turner. They both get in this year. I'm not saying that's why I'm saying, John, I'll put your name in there because apparently there might be other people. There may be other people that said it, but I don't think it's a complete accident that I asked for Ted Turner and Jim Johnston. And finally this year, I'm looking at the email right now. And I said, Dave, for the final time I'm going to do this, could you please add Jim Johnston and Ted Turner? And goddamn it, he did. So Jim Johnston, I think that's a slam dunk case for me. And I'm somebody that really thinks the music in pro wrestling is super important to the characters, to the wrestlers. I think guys in a lot of cases get over to another. It's not that like theme music will absolutely 100% make a guy. I guess for Bobby Roode or whatever, it will make a guy. But like, I think it enhances guys. Like I think Stone Cold Steve Austin becomes the megastar he is because of the Glass Shatter. I think The Rock becomes who he is because that. I think that helps kind of take guys over the, leaps them over and gets them to that next level. And Jim Johnston's the guy that you look at and the body of work for him is insane, of the guys he was able to do music for and what he was able to do in the 90s and the 2000s with WWE. And yeah, it's not all been good. And he obviously lost his touch, in the final few years there. And it was like definitely time for him to go because he kind of lost touch with what modern wrestling was. But I think at this point, or what modern music was, I should say. But no, I mean, 32 years with that company, developing a lot of their music, in tow with Jimmy Hart, who went in last year. And Jimmy Hart, that's a big reason why I wanted him to get in there too. I think, not only as a wrestling manager, I think as a composer and the music influence is so huge in pro wrestling. And Jim Johnston's a guy that I don't think he's going to get a lot of support, but I know 100% I'll be voting for him because I just think the music of pro wrestling is so important to characters and so important to the whole aesthetics of wrestling. And this guy, is arguably the best one to ever do it. And yeah, there to me, there's a no doubt case for him, but it'll be a struggle for him no matter what to get on, which kind of stinks.
What about Naoki Sugabayashi? He was the chairman of New Japan going back to 2013. And I sort of think if you're going to support Gedo, maybe you want to support him too, given how much New Japan has grown across in that period where he is chairman. I guess the question is maybe trying to decide how much of that he really deserves credit for, and is it a Hall of Fame case? But what are your thoughts on Naoki Tsukubayashi?
Yeah, it's a tough one here because it's like, it's not sexy, you know what I mean, to vote for like the chairman. Like Gedo's a sexy one where you're like, yeah, I know what Gedo's doing on a daily basis. I know that this thing is happening because Gedo, or whoever was in the booking committee. But like, I don't know that I know what, like, I know that he was the chairman and that things went well and that, obviously the company grew under him, but like, it's this weird thing where I don't know if he was like, hey, here's what we should do. And everyone's like, all right, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what he did. Like, I'm sure he didn't make a bunch of shitty decisions because the company under his tutelage did well. But it's like, what did he do? I don't, and this is why voting for like a chairman is so tough because it's like, I don't know, maybe he was just a complete idiot and everybody just ignores him and does whatever they want anyway. And like, they just happen to have success. Or maybe he's in there and saying, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Like, I don't know what he did well. I guess like, you could just attribute success to him, but it's one of those weird ones where I don't know. I would love to hear a case for somebody that either worked with him or worked in the company or whatever to say, no, here's like, this dude was always in the room and always telling us to do this and always saying this and always giving these thoughts. And yeah, he's a really smart dude, or like someone to say, oh no, he's a complete idiot. Nobody listens to him or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what he did. And it's one of these things where, yeah, do I contribute his, New Japan success to him? I think you'd be stupid not to do that in some shape or form, but it's like, at what level and how much do we attribute to him? I don't have a good read on it whatsoever.
So will you be voting for him?
I will not right now until maybe if people can make a case for me to say, okay, look, definitely here's why he belongs in, or I've worked with him and he's, because right now it's just like, I don't know, there's like companies that I'm sure have like, that are really successful, but one of their chairmen is a complete doofus that doesn't know anything or whatever. And I don't know if I'm not saying that's the case with him. It's just like, I don't know what he's done other than presided over a successful company, and is that in spite of him and because of him? I don't know. I don't have a good read on it for him. So yeah, I feel kind of bad because I want to vote for him, but it's just like I don't know. I don't know if I have enough information about him to definitely vote for him.
Yeah, I think I would vote for him unless somebody can tell me that he definitely has nothing to do with their rise or anything. But it just feels like they've made enough really strong business decisions, and you would think he would deserve some credit for that. And he's also like I don't know. He's like he feels like a very famous figurehead at this point from all these press conferences. Yeah, I don't know if that's worth. So I don't know. I definitely see the case there. There's two more left, and then we'll be done here. I want to talk about, first of all, Stephanie McMahon.
Move on. Next.
What the fuck is Stephanie McMahon doing on this ballot?
John, here's the worst thing. She's going to make it like 30%.
What is the case? I just don't understand. Like, are we voting on her as a on-screen personality? Because that is like patently absurd. She's one of the worst on-screen personalities.
Oh, you don't like her shrieking and then slapping people and then nobody ever getting their revenge on her? Oh, come on. That's great. Yeah. It's good shit, pal. She's
one of the worst on-screen personalities. She has done more, as much as anyone to make sure that every single babyface in the fucking company in the last 15 years never gets over. That's her fucking legacy as an on-screen performer, is slapping people in the face, like you said, and making sure no one can ever look good. So I don't know why that be. And then what if you're not voting for that? Are you voting for a fucking run on the creative team?
Yeah, I was gonna say. One of the worst periods of creative. One
of the worst periods of creative. Supposedly one of the worst bosses of all time. And like, what are we doing here? Why the fuck did he even put her on the ballot? I don't know. What is it? What is there? Because someone asked me on as one of the questions to make a Stephanie case. I legitimately do not know how to do it. I don't know what the case would be. So, Rich, do you have any idea? What is the case for Stephanie McMahon?
Yeah, it's not Chief Brand Officer. Her great job as Chief Brand Officer. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a terrible case. I'm not going to be making it for sure. There's no way in hell that I would vote for her. I mean, honestly, like of all the things, like her match with Nikki Bella is probably the best case that I can make. Is like she had one match where she wasn't fucking terrible. So the
Trish match was like shockingly not.
Yeah,
terrible.
There you go. So I mean, that's my case. Is like.
Her best argument might be in ring.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That Vince match was shockingly not that terrible. Her best argument might be in ring,
which is horrifying because she also wrestled for like 2 years in the 90s or whatever, and it was horrible. So I am not going to make a Stephanie McMahon case. So that's it for me. Yeah, this hopefully, but the worst part, she's going to get like 30%. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she's going
People-
to. I hope. God, people be smart. Just don't vote for her. Drop her off.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Ted Turner. That's the last one I want to talk about. You wanted him on the ballot. So
Yeah.
Ted
Yeah.
Turner
So Ted Turner, I think, like, honestly, and the big reason why I think that Dave probably did it this year, in a big case why I was like, hey, now or never for Ted, is we know that, obviously his health's not doing well. And it's, again, it's like this fake Hall of Fame that nobody really cares about except for, us weird wrestling fans or whatever. But still, it's a good time to sort of look at Ted Turner and look at what he did and how important he was to pro wrestling. And I think in an arguable case that he is not just the owner of a television station that happened to play pro wrestling. Like, that network, he had an undying loyalty to wrestling, because the wrestling helped his network get off the ground, TBS. And anytime in a boardroom they said, hey, what are we doing with this wrestling thing? Let's get rid of this. He always would say, no, I'm never getting rid of it. They help my network. I am loyal. I have undying loyalty to pro wrestling. So he saved Jim Crockett Promotions many times, literally saved Jim Crockett Promotions by buying them and turning it to WCW, saved WCW many, many times when everybody said, let's get rid of this thing. Why are we doing this? What the hell? Why does it even exist? And he saves that company and keeps that alive for years and years and years. He gives Eric Bischoff, Monday Night Nitro. That then kind of transforms pro wrestling as WCW makes a rise and becomes the top company, largely because, his backing in a lot of ways. I think, no, does he have was wrestling his number one objective and number one thing? No, absolutely not. But I think it's impossible not to say that he had an influence on keeping pro wrestling a two company, American pro wrestling, a two large company thing. If Ted Turner's not there, WCW's gone in 1992. You know what I mean? Like, that's just dead and gone. It doesn't even exist at any point, because it's just gone when Jim Crockett Promotions runs out of money and he doesn't save them. So that's kind of gone there. Yeah, I just think he has such a profound influence on keeping WCW, Jim Crockett Promotions, keeping another viable alternative to WWF alive for as many years as he did. I think he's got a huge influence in turning WCW into a player in that industry, and eventually, going and beating WWE for as long as they did. And yeah, I think, it's just, it doesn't exist. I think all this stuff doesn't, WCW doesn't exist. Jim Crockett Promotions probably doesn't exist as long as it does without Ted Turner. And I think that's something that definitely deserves some thought, is where would the history of pro wrestling be without Ted Turner? Can you tell the current story of pro wrestling history without mentioning Ted Turner? And I don't think you can. And that's where I think he absolutely belongs in. So I'll be definitely voting for Ted Turner. And I'd like to see if others do as well.
Here's a question: would AEW be on TNT right now without Ted Turner?
Probably not. No, I mean, he builds that legacy of wrestling on the Turner networks, and yeah, even though he doesn't have anything to do with it anymore, it's still that thing that because they had it on for so long and because it was what it was and all this. I mean, yeah, there's absolutely a case to be made that it doesn't happen.
That was Tony Khan's pitch. Like, when he went to the TNT executive, he was like, "Look, this is wrestling. Wrestling was here for that many years. They marketed it immediately with remember that when the AEW on TNT account started, they had the giant fire in the background that was clearly referencing Nitro. I mean, they just haven't they played off that.
The show is called Dynamite, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear. So there you go.
Yeah, so you can even include his influence even today, even with AEW, even if he's not directly involved in it in any way, shape, or form. But I'm voting for him, and I think there's a real case to be made for him.
All right, so we have a ton of questions, and I know we've already gone over 2 hours, so let's try to get through as many as we can. Some of these questions are Hall of Fame related, some of them aren't, so people just want to ask you stuff, Rich. First,
they have all opportunities. Why would they choose this? They have 1,000 opportunities to ask me questions, but that's fine.
So first of all, from the Twitter account, at Liar Papasmedov, what's the last period in years you enjoyed the WWE main roster product?
Not that long ago. I mean, 2013, 2014, I thought it was great. Hell, and even a few years ago, their pay-per-views were really good. What was it, 2015 or 16? Joe and I would say every week that these pay-per-views are incredible. The TV, didn't really work for me, but fuck, the pay-per-views were great when you had AJ Styles and Indy Cena doing fucking Yoshi Tonics all over the place and stuff. That stuff was great. So no, I mean, week to week, probably the last time I enjoyed it was 2013, 2014, but I still like the pay-per-views back from even a few years ago. It's really only fallen off a complete cliff 2 years ago, where now at no point the TV kind of stinks and the pay-per-views kind of stink, and now there's really no point in watching them whatsoever. But yeah, I think even a few years ago I was still into the pay-per-views, and yeah, 4 or 5 years ago I was way into the weekly TV too, but now it's all just falling off a cliff. So
I will say, for me, it's probably I probably didn't enjoy the stuff that you enjoyed nearly as much, but even I enjoyed the weekly TV, I don't know, 2007. When is the period where Edge and DX feuding and stuff.
Yeah,
so
2006, 2007, yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, but like the problem, I think even if you're not super high on it, it's clearly gotten much worse in the last like 2 years. Like pretty much since like 2017.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's where like no, it definitely fell off a cliff at that point. So
yeah, I mean like that's pretty much where I don't know what happened exactly, but something definitely happened. His other question was, if Naito does go to the main event, the 1-5 Dome, do you pit him against Okada and waste a potential big money match on 18 hours build, or do you save it and have Naito versus Ibushi on 1-5?
it's an interesting question. Yeah, that's one that we've talked about a lot on the flagship of, do you, with 18-hour build, tell people to go watch Okada and Naito? And it's like, I guess a lot of it will depend on what the tickets are. And we say that in a weird way, like, but that's business. That's a business for wrestling. If we're selling a shit ton of tickets, no, we're not going to give you that match. If the building's already sold out, like, nah, fuck it. You're going to wait for another day and buy tickets to watch Okada and Naito down the line. But yeah, if the tickets are a little soft and you say, hey, shit, we can get a lot of walk up. Let's do this, and say, hey, in 18 hours, these two guys are fighting each other, so make sure you're here to watch this. Like, I could see that. So I think it's all going to depend on where the ticket sales go and if they're if their hand is forced to do it, or if they can hold it off, because I think they would like to hold it off. They would like to sell, 40,000 tickets without announcing that match and then hold it off for another event. But yeah, if tickets are a little light, then they'll absolutely do it, I think, to sell that thing out or get as close as they can to doing so. So yeah, I think we'll see. It's all going to depend on that, though. I do really think.
Yeah, I think it'll be if they think they need it for a big walk up on 1-5, because right now 1-5 is behind 1-4.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think it is going to be Okada Naito, because I think they're going to count on people just on that day. It being a Sunday is a big part of it too, where like people on a Sunday can be more likely to be like, well, I'm not at work anyway, and they're doing Okada Naito, so let's just fucking go.
Right.
Which I think that might be the idea. But if, like you're saying, if there's a huge run on tickets before that, they announce the tournament and people just decide to buy it up like crazy, maybe they do Naito Ibushi instead. Domini Hamani, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, sir. So basically he says, hey guys, you've always said that Shima's a Hall of Famer, but who on the current Dragon Gate roster should go into the Hall of Fame? He says Mochi and Shingo just in ring should be in, and he brings up Doi for being one of the best tag team wrestlers ever, and then Yamato and Yoshino. I don't know if I would put any of those people in for sure. I think Mochizuki has maybe the strongest case as far as like, he has a great history of in-ring work. I think he's maybe one of the most underrated in-ring workers ever, like from a mainstream standpoint. And his title reigns drew well at the Dragon Gate level. So I could see a case for Mochizuki. I don't think any of them ever will get in, because I just don't think enough people watch Dragon Gate. But I could see a case for Mochizuki. Shingo, if he really ascends to like an even higher level in New Japan, maybe you could even make a case for him. I mean, he has like this huge body of work. And Doi is one of the best tag wrestlers ever, and maybe should be in for that. But, the fact that his run with the Dream Gate was kind of a failure, I think probably hurts his case more than anything. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if any of those guys are really good candidates to ever get in. And you can make a case, like Mochizuki is probably the case that I would absolutely make, because it's just like a really good years of solid in ring, but like he just doesn't have as much that Shima has. Like he doesn't have those extra things. It's just kind of like you're voting on him because he's been a good wrestler for a lot of years, and it's like it's not really quite enough. And yeah, I don't know that anybody from Dragon Gate's ever going to kind of burst through. If Shima doesn't do it, like none of those guys will, and Shima might do it, and I still don't think any of those guys ever will. So and that's okay, that's fine. It's not that big of a deal, but I don't know if I'd be able to make a good case for really any of those guys.
At AWQ 1985, what's the next exotic holiday location for Rich?
I don't know. Not sure. We got to see. I don't have any PTO, so it's nothing else this year. I've used all my time off, and I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. The nurse wanted to start planning something. I was like, we just got back, so no, you're not planning anything just yet. So
come to Japan.
Look, the problem that I always say with Japan is that the fact that like what I want to do in Japan is very different than what my wife is going to want to do in Japan.
Tell your wife to get lost. Just come on.
That's the only problem too. Is hey, I'm going away for a week on vacation without you. Bye. Like enjoy.
Try to hit the bricks.
Yeah, that's it's gonna be tough.
Nicole was able to I don't know. I took Nicole on this last trip finally, and like she just she just went shopping and did a little sightseeing every time I went to a wrestling show. It was We worked it out.
Yeah, that's what I'd have to do is kind of have a balance of like, okay, tonight I'm going to first ring, so you can do whatever you want to do. I'll be right back. Like enjoy the shopping or taking photos or hanging around. But yeah, I mean, she likes to hang out with me when we go on vacation, so I feel like that'd be a tough sell to be like, hey, just go away.
You still have all day. I mean, the wrestling shows are I mean, the wrestling shows are not as long as you think they are.
Right.
Like big shows. Like basically, I told Nicole, it's like, look, I'm going to be gone for like 3 hours. It's not, at nighttime anyway. And she was like, okay. And I got her to go to a couple of shows with me.
That's good. Well, yeah. I'll try to do the sell. I've mentioned Japan quite a few times, and hasn't always kind of worked. Hasn't quite nailed it quite yet. But I'll keep working on it. So I do want to go. I do want to go at some point. So
I mean, if the G1's in the fall, that's a great time to go because that may be your only chance to see the last 3 nights of a G1 without like.
And she would go to be fair, she would go definitely to like any sort of New Japan show or even maybe like Dragon Gate or whatever. The tough thing is going to be like, I don't think she's going to Big Japan. I don't think she's going to Hard Hit with me either. So yeah, that's going to be the issue. Is I could sell her on a New Japan show. I don't know that I could sell her on Hard Hit or
Gedo Move.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to do there. So.
But yeah, I don't know. Keep me. Stay in the loop. I always post it, Rich. You should come.
Thank you.
And then he said, "Who are the best? The bet the house can needs to go in this year." I think we kind of covered that, but like, I think we kind of covered actually who we think we're going to go in. Probably, I think the biggest one because the U.S. is a week. Probably Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Junkyard Dog, Sergeant Slaughter. I think. And then in Japan, fucking hopefully Jun Akiyama, maybe Akira Taue, but yeah, it's impossible to ever get a read on what the hell who's actually going to ever go in because it never is what you think it's going to be, and it's always kind of wild. So we'll see.
Tyler Fornes, a new Voice Wrestling contributor. What is more important to you two specifically, and the voters in general, when it comes to Hall of Fame accolades or work rate?
For me, it's going to be work rate, and it depends. Accolades is a weird one because, again, like, is it like Edge accolades of like winning 29 championships? Like, I don't know. That doesn't really mean that much to me. But if accolades is like, what you achieve in terms of like, yeah, I guess if you're talking about Japan, like one of the, winning the title in Japan is an important thing, all this sort of stuff, yada, yada, whatever. For me, it's always going to be work rate. That's what I'm going to look at first. Like, if you're a good wrestler, that's your first entrant into my, sort of personal Hall of Fame. And then all the other stuff kind of comes after that. So if you're a good wrestler, then I look at the other stuff and go, okay, you're a good wrestler. In addition to doing this, you're in. But yeah, I'll always put what you do in ring as number one. I
agree. So, and I think though to the general public, it seems to be like drawing more than anything, which frustrates me sometimes. Joe Gagney says, what non-New Japan wrestler not on the ballot do you think has the best chance of making it into the Hall of Fame in the years to come, or any future Japan entrants strictly come from New Japan? I mean, I think that if there's a guy who is making a case right now for himself that I think, will probably get a lot of support in the future, I think it's probably Kento.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Yeah. Kento's a really good case to be made for him. I mean, again, I don't know if it's a case that's going to get him in. And I guess we're going to have this weird thing with the Hall of Fame of like, there's going to be a certain point where like, how do we even, because drawing is so much more different than it was, years ago, that what do we do? But like, it's undisputed that he was like a huge deal in All Japan, kind of transforming their business around. And yeah, maybe again, it's not getting 15,000 people in the building, but going from basically death to, as consistent as they are now, is definitely worth something. So yeah, he makes a really good case. I don't know if there's anybody else that really jumps off the page for me.
Yeah. I mean, Kento to me is the big one because he, first of all, he, if you want to look at him from in-ring, I think he's one of the best in-ring workers of this generation. I mean, just as far as like having top end singles matches, he's up there with anybody. So to me right there, that criteria, he's a Hall of Famer. As far as the other two, drawing, it's good. Like you said, we're going to have to look at it differently. And influence, and positive influence, he helped save this company. So that's a huge positive influence. And All Japan is a very historically relevant company. So it's not like he saved, fucking Hard Hit, like we're just talking about these other companies. I mean, he saved All Japan. So I think that's a, huge positive influence. So, I think that's to me, that's the guy. As far as like anybody else, yeah, it's going to be, and I think it will, to Joe's point, I think it will be very difficult for people outside New Japan to get it in the future. So at Rich Lotta 32, John, what year do you plan on putting Kenny Omega in? If I had a ballot, I would probably vote for him.
Yeah, you said right there. I was kind of surprised when you were like, "Yeah, Kenny's got a good case." I'm like, "Oh, there we go." So I mean, you can't deny it though. You can hate Kenny, but like, yeah, it's obviously there. If you're doing objective stuff, it's clear that he belongs in some form or fashion. So
I am a fair and unbalanced person.
Yeah, exactly.
So. At L_Klim_Hazard_L. That's quite the name, sir. Do you think? Oh, actually, we just said this. Do you think someone like Miyahara has a real chance of getting in the future, considering how stars of smaller promotions such as Marufuji and Sugiura aren't in? Yes, I think Kento probably will get at the very least, people will make a real case for him.
He'll have a look. I don't think he'll ever go in, but yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Look at the voters, man. I don't know. I'd be shocked. I mean, they just secondary companies just don't. Secondary companies past this current era, especially not in America, just don't seem to do all that well. I mean. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. But yeah, I don't know. It's at this point, it feels like if you're not in New Japan, you're probably not, in Japan going to go in. But
what Kento has going from too, though, is that Dave talks him up a lot.
That's true. And that will help a little bit when it does come to that.
Garrett Kidney says, "Please make the case for Shark Boy."
That's Seafood Pro Wrestling probably doesn't happen without Shark Boy. So there you go.
Good point. Influence.
He's got profound influence on the Chikara's never ending amount of crustaceans and fish and water related characters. I think probably doesn't happen without Shark Boy either. So yeah, I mean,
you just talked way more about this question than I thought.
Well, I wanted to give it an honest answer. Garrett asked the question. I will answer it. So
at GRR4136, Kenta. If Kenta would have a nice run for a year or two in New Japan, would you consider him Hall of Fame worthy? And then he says something else about Arden totally with JJ, which we already pretty much covered. Look, I don't know if the Kenta New Japan run is really on a trajectory that's going to get him, going to help a Hall of Fame case. That's the problem. But if he really, I don't know. I don't think he's on that trajectory.
Nah, and like the draw, I mean, there's real evidence that he was kind of in some ways a negative draw in Noah, and that's not all his fault. Like a lot of it was how Noah sort of did it. But yeah, it's not like he, when he was a main eventer, everything just popped to Noah and everybody loved it. Like, yeah, I mean, in ring, he's incredible. One of my favorite wrestlers ever. But I don't know that it's enough really for me to say definitively he belongs in the Hall of Fame. So and particularly not looking at this New Japan run and saying this run is the one that's going to put him over the top. Like I think if anything, it's just going to kind of cement his legacy as just like a guy that an all-time great, like Hall of Fame level talent, but not a Hall of Famer.
All right, so we got questions from two different Discords now because, folks, I don't know if you know this, there's now a Voices of Wrestling Discord. So you can join that, and I don't know. I'll put the link in the description.
Yeah, also voicesofwrestling.com/Discord. I made a redirect too. So if you do that, it'll pop up there for you too. So
yeah, so there's a Voice of Wrestling Discord. There's also a Super J-Cast Discord where there's an Omakase channel. So I'm like double dipping here. I got in like right before. Basically, they made me a channel on the J-Cast Discord like a week before.
Sorry,
we made the Voice of Wrestling Discord. It's not sorry. It's great. I'm like, wow. I'm the only podcast that has a channel on both Discords. So there you go. So you can go to either one to ask questions, folks, and talk to me and talk to random guests and stuff. It's pretty cool time. So let's see. First of all, from the Super J-Cast Discord, Dakota Ibushi. If you ranked all the promotions in the world right now, how long until you got to an American promotion based on match quality, buzz, etc., in our bubble and or your personal rankings? I think, so putting match quality there, I think, is what would really hurt AEW. For me at least, but like for buzz, I think in the bubble AEW is probably close to number one. So that
sure, yeah, absolutely.
You have to say that. Now, as far as my personal rankings, I could probably rank a lot of companies before I get to AEW, but I don't know, like maybe like 7. I don't know, maybe 6 or 7, but they just don't have a wrestling style right now that's like, really my kind of favorite style of wrestling. It's very US indie.
Yeah, right.
Never been my favorite style. And I would like to see more like technical wrestling and like, more, even more like, I don't know, even more like the New Japan, like epic style. That really isn't there so far. So it's not really there for me. But, I'm sure it is for a lot of other people. But like, it's not that I dislike AEW. I actually really liked their first TV show this week. But, I'm always going to consider myself more a fan of like, New Japan and All Japan and DDT and Stardom and, Tokyo Joshi and, even like promotions I watch a little less like Sendai Girls or Noah or, there's a lot basically, so they would be pretty far down for me. But at least that AEW's at least like higher than WWE or Ring of Honor would be.
Right,
so.
and I think they're kind of at this point now. I think that we've seen what AEW is going to do, and I think what they're doing is they're playing a different game than some of those other promotions. New Japan is telling you what they're going to try to do. New Japan is going to try to go out there and every time they have a match, it's just going to try to be, anytime there's a main event, it's going to try to be this incredible epic, like you said, an epic style match or whatever, which I like. I like that stuff. And that's kind of, a lot of Japanese promotions in their main events is similar too. All Japan, maybe does it a little slower than New Japan, but it's the same idea that Kento's going to have this like hard fought, long battle and epic and stuff. And I like that. I love that stuff. And that stuff's really cool. AEW has shown you that that's probably right now not going to be what their style is going to be. They're going to be more of kind of an American, style, a little bit more of a US indie style, that sort of stuff, which is fine because there's different objectives right there. So that's why I have a tough time like ranking them, because I feel like they're doing different things. What AEW is doing is different than what New Japan's doing, and what New Japan's doing is a little bit different than what Dragon Gate's doing. So ranking them is kind of tricky, where I just like saying like, hey, I so far, no, I would I rather watch, a New Japan main event than an AEW main event at this point? Yeah, probably. But I love the approach that AEW's taken to TV so far. So I like that, and I've liked their shows so far, and I like everything they've done so far. But yeah, in terms of like ranking them, like I just think they're playing a little bit of a different game. So I have a tough time being like, okay, this company is definitively over this company. Like I like different things. I like the idea that I can watch epics, in one breath, and then watch, sort of my ideal idea of what, U.S. American wrestling should be with AEW and whatnot. So yeah, it works on different levels. So yeah, I never
Rich, rank it anyway, Rich.
No, I don't. I don't know. New Japan 1, AEW 3, Dragon Gate 2. I don't know.
There you go. That works. Liam McCann says, assign these wrestlers to their Pokemon. So you did watch Pokemon.
Oh Jesus. Okay. All right. One second.
All right. What Pokemon is Katsuhiko Nakajima? I think he's Machamp.
Okay, so I'm a 151 guy, so I'm not going to be able to give you any of the. Is that fine? I'm just gonna.
I really can't do it either. I'm past the 151.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just gonna do 151s. Oh boy. I did not read this question before. I wish I had gotten more time to do it. So we're doing Nakajima.
Yeah, I think he's. Oh no, he's obviously the fucking one who kicks. God, which one is that? There's the
yes, yeah. Oh, what's his name?
Hitmonlee, I think.
Yeah, he's like a. Yeah, he's like oblong, or he's like weird shaped. What the fuck is that one's name?
It's Hitmonlee.
Hitmonlee. That's it. Yeah. That's Nakajima for sure.
Okay. Asuka, the all caps Asuka from DDT. Asuka is Jinx, I think.
Yeah. I'll let you do that answer. I don't know if I know enough about all caps Asuka to give a coordinated.
I'm gonna go with Jinx.
Go with that.
Soma Takao. Soma Takao is an interesting one. Who's like a very pretty Pokemon?
Oh, they're all pretty in their own way. Yeah, who's a pretty Pokemon? Yeah, because Takao was very pretty, man.
Maybe Ponyta, because they both have like the fire, so he has like the red hair.
That's true. I'm trying to think of who's like the most like kind of. Well, there's one that's like dressed as like a princess, but that's not Takao. He's better than that. I don't know. I have no idea.
Zeus is
Jinx is what I was thinking of, but that's not the one.
Zeus is Machamp. For sure. I said Machamp.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Machamp's the fully evolved one, right?
Yeah,
just like the big burly fighter. Yeah, that's perfect.
And then Kagetsu, again, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this one. Kagetsu, I think of like as a ninja. I know there was like a ninja Pokemon, even though that might be right past. Yeah, Greninja. So Kagetsu is Greninja, I think.
I'll let that. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. There we go. We did it. Puff and Braid Andrew, how funny will the fallout be if Kenny and Gedo get in? And people will definitely freak the fuck out, so it'll be pretty funny.
Yeah, people freak the fuck out about everything. Who cares? Yeah, the Kenny thing will be, oh, Dave made Kenny get in there and and all that sort of stuff. It's whatever. It's obsessive Meltzer accounts will freak out, and a bunch of people freak out, but it's like whatever. I mean,
we found out 2 of them are by the same person, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, well, yeah, Jesus, can you imagine your life if that's what you do is like, oh, I can't wait to see what Meltzer tweets today so I can screen cap it and get a bunch of likes about it. It's like, what is wrong with you? I mean, come on. Like, I spend all of my free time talking about talking about wrestling on podcasts, and even I'm like, dude, come on, get a life, man. What are you doing? So yeah,
Meltzer said what?
Yeah, it's I'm sure there'll be freak out, but there's gonna be freak out if whatever, who cares at this point.
Mark says, why is Kenny Omega the greatest Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Famer ever? Mark, you have a very fitting name.
Yeah, absolutely. He is very good, but yeah, I think they're. I think maybe Mr. Hulk Hogan, or like many other guys. Ric Flair might be a good case to be made as well.
That was a joke question.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah.
Then he does say serious question. What would you guys do to fix the problem of active wrestlers? There's still plenty of time left, potentially taking spots away from older worthy people. And then he gives Kenny and Ibushi like probably deserving, but have like 5+ years left. I mean, I would just make it at least making it 40 instead of 35.
Yeah, that's it right there. Just the difference in pro wrestling between 35 and 40 is profound. At 40, like I just said, like CM Punk is like 40 years old or 41 years old or whatever. Like we lost the last 5 years of him, which is arguably his wrestler peak. Wrestlers peak at that time. That's when everything kind of comes together. The physicality is there. They're smarter about the business. They know it a little bit more. So that 35 to 40 is such an important part of a pro wrestler's career. And we see a lot of guys have their best work done in that era. By 40, you pretty much got it with a guy. There's a few exceptions to the rule where guys at 40 transform their careers or do whatever. And maybe in 10 years, we have to move to 45 because a bunch of 40-year-olds have incredible careers or whatever. But at this point, 40, like, what everybody's going to be at that point. So I'm fine with that.
Ice Age Coming says, imagine you're in a hell world and Paul, or are we not in a hell world already?
I was going to say.
And Paul, have you looked at the news lately, Ice Age? Paul Heyman's booking assistant on Raw. You are Paul Heyman's booking assistant on Raw. And he comes to you and says, damn, we don't have enough cuck stories at the moment. Who in the world of wrestling would you bring in to be the third WWE cuck?
Ooh, okay. It can't be anybody on the roster. It has to be.
You see the look my girlfriend just gave me.
Yeah, that poor woman. Yeah, you need to end the show because she's like, "What in the hell are you talking about?"
The look on her face.
Yeah. Oh man.
She had to walk in the room at that exact moment.
Yeah, that's really terrible. Yeah. Who would I like to see? So am I answering who would I like to see, like all three participants in this angle, right?
I guess.
Yeah, I don't. It has to be new people to. I don't know, man. It's gonna be weird. I don't know. They're probably it's just like I'm just thinking of like, hey, what do I like? Like, what are Rich's fetishes? And like, who could come in and do what? So,
who's getting cocked, Rich?
Yeah, I don't know. Who? They should bring me in. Okay, so Kairi Sane is in a storyline with somebody, and then I come in, and I am the one that makes out with Kairi Sane now. I think that's the one. So go with that. I don't fucking know, man. Like, who cares? It's a very nice woman. I would enjoy that angle if they said, "Hey, do you want to make out with Kairi Sane on a daily basis?" I'm like, you know what? I would. So I will come in and do that for you guys. I don't know. Who fucking cares? It's well, they've already done. So we got Black on White. We got I don't know. Honestly, if they want to get the newest trends, we definitely have like Stephanie and like we got to have some parental weirdness stuff though, because like porn sites are filled with like really odd like, oh, my stepmom and me, and I'm like, that's weird, but okay. I mean, so I guess that's your new thing. This podcast is terrible. Please sign up. This is
TJ. He says, here's last week's guest. We to take one current Hall of Famer out of the Hall of Fame. Who would it be? I assume for hard mode we can't do Benoit because that would definitely be the answer. I think I would probably take Shinsuke out. I just don't think I don't think it's worked. I mean, I don't think he's done anything since he went in that's remotely Hall of Fame worthy, and it just feels like, he got in at the exact moment where, he was at his peak, but like, I don't know. He doesn't really have a good case, especially when his run as a top star in New Japan was a failure. I mean, it was a failure. They never really went with him on top again when he did get very popular. And, his legacy now is like, he got over to America and now he's a fucking mid-carder in WWE. And like, his WWE run would not make, any case for him to be a Hall of Famer. So I think Shinsuke is the guy I would take out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than the murderer. Yeah,
of course. The guy that murdered his family. Going through the list, no doubt. I mean, he's the one that really, like, of all the other guys I look at, I'm like, there's a case to be made for that guy. There's a case to be made for that guy. That guy had, like, he sticks out as, like, I don't know that there's any case to be made for him anymore. And he's a guy that, he absolutely came in at absolutely the exact right time and has done nothing to help his case and actively has hurt his case. So, of all the recent guys, and I'm looking even, like, the past guys, too, there's not a lot of other people that I would say, I'd be super comfortable with kicking out, but he's definitely one that I would kick out and not really feel bad about it.
Liam says, why isn't Sugiura in the Hall of Fame? Fuck. I don't know if I would put Sugiura in the Hall of Fame.
Nah, he's again, not everybody has to make the Hall of Fame. Like I like a very select list of guys. You can still enjoy Sugiura, you can still think he's great in ring and not a Hall of Famer. And that's where I'm at. I like Sugiura. He's one of my favorites, but no, I mean he is probably not a Hall of Famer.
And then we have some questions from the Voice of Wrestling.
Oh God.
Discord. But this is it though. This is like there's not that many of them, thank God. Chad Campbell says if Kojima was on the ballot as single, where would you rank him compared to Taue? I think Taue is a way better candidate than Kojima.
Yeah, I would probably have Taue a little bit over Kojima. I would make a case, like I can make a case for both those guys, but I would have Taue slightly above Kojima.
HP Joker says, are people still sympathetic to Punk's Hall of Fame case, or did him turning heel on Cabana piss that away? I don't think we talked about Punk's
I don't think it helped. Yeah, I don't think it helped at all.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's like the reason why he's not getting votes, but I don't think it's going to help him. It's definitely certainly not going to make someone that's on the fence go, you know what? Yeah, he was a total fuck to my friend, but hey, whatever. Like, water under the bridge. So yeah, I think it's certainly not going to help.
Look at Ice Age coming double dipping on both.
Discord what a punk!
Here.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest glaring omission from the Hall of Fame and the ballot for it? As in someone who either hasn't been considered or who dropped off that you think should be in? That's a good question. I'm not really sure who dropped off that I would say should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. There's nobody in like recent history I can think of. I mean, I could see Samoa Joe dropped off last year, and I kind of see his argument, but like, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. So I'm just like, I don't know.
I'd have to go back. Yeah, there's probably a good answer somewhere, but I would need the entire list of everybody. And off the top of my head, I don't know that list initially to say. I mean, yeah, it's a tough. Without seeing that list, it's really, really difficult. I mean, just looking at last year, like Samoa Joe's a guy that probably deserves a little bit more, but like, I don't know if I'd like, just definitively be like, no, Samoa Joe belongs in and he can't try. Like, yeah, I get it why he dropped off or whatever. I'm sure there's other dudes, but yeah, like without seeing the entire list, I have a tough time saying for sure.
Yeah, and I'm looking at like guys who dropped off in their first year, like the Big Show dropped off, and it's like I probably wouldn't vote for it. So, like, should Shinsuke Nakamura got in his first year?
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah, it's bad.
Wow. China didn't get in, and that she probably shouldn't have. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. I'm just like, I don't know. I just can't. I can't. Like Paul Jones didn't get in. It's like, I probably wouldn't have voted for him. But there's nobody I can think of that's just like that's never been considered. That I'm just like,
right, yeah. Most people that have been, yeah. I mean, look at this list. Like, pretty much everyone's considered at some form or fashion. So yeah. There's not a whole lot.
Paul Jalaki. Do you ever see an argument for having a wrestler who moves into a management role like Cody or Triple H going as a non-wrestler as well, or do you just lump that into their standard case?
I just put it all in one. I would say like that's kind of what I do, and I don't know if that's how you're supposed to do it, but that's kind of how I do it. Like Akiyama is a guy who like I add the All Japan stuff to his case because it's like, well, whatever. Like so, I suppose you could separate them and do it, but I think it's always going to be better if you just lump that in with their pro wrestling and make it all one thing. And if you look at the current non-wrestlers, like I'm seeing like I guess there's. Yeah, I mean, I guess Gedo's in there as a non-wrestler, but yeah, there's a few dudes who are in there just, for what they do. I don't know. Yeah, I would always kind of lump it in together if you can. And I think there's nothing really against doing that.
Yeah. Nate says, do you think Meiko's appearance in the Mae Young Classic helps her in any way? And ICH Cummings says, what about a recent run the UK Indies? I covered that basically in my case. Yeah. I think it definitely did help her, especially with Western voters. And that's it, Rich. We're finally done with all the questions.
Yeah, there we go. Nice. No, I appreciate all the questions. It's just,
there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So what do you think then, as far as like overall last thoughts on the Observer Hall of Fame? Sell the people on the Observer Hall of Fame, Rich. Why is it? You did this in the Patreon.
Yeah. So, by the way, patreon.com/voice of wrestling. We're going to have a lot of really cool stuff there for you guys on the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. So if you're interested in this and want to hear more about, particular candidates and particular regions, we're going to cover every one of the regions over there with a special guest on each region. So it'll be fun stuff. But yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, if you're listening to all this and go like, who fucking cares? It's a fake Hall of Fame. And who cares? It's just like the easiest boil down kind of like elevator pitch I say is it's just reliving, wrestling's greatest figures and talking about wrestling's greatest figures and discussing wrestling's, greatest figure. Like if you like that, if you like any amount of history of pro wrestling and you like talking about the greatest people in pro wrestling, then that's all it is. Like at the end of the day, what did you and I do? We just kind of said, hey, this guy was awesome. Here's cool stuff that he did. Like that's it. So that's, boil it down to just that. If you don't care about the minutia of who's getting what percentages and whatever, just think of it as like an opportunity to talk about Jun Akiyama and talk about Akira Taue and badmouth Stephanie McMahon and say she's got no case. Like that's that's the fun of it. It's like, it doesn't ultimately matter. Like, I don't think I really care who goes in. I don't think you really like definitively care who goes in. I'm sure the fake, Meltzer accounts are going to get really upset about Kenny. Really don't care at the end of the day. It's just like, it's just a fun exercise to kind of talk about pro wrestling greats. So that's what I say is like, it just comes down to, if you like pro wrestling history, if you like talking about pro wrestling, it's a cool opportunity to kind of relive some guys' careers and go back and watch stuff. Like this will give me an opportunity to watch a lot of those Meiko matches and say, cool, I'm interested to see what you guys, what the best matches are, and sit down and watch them. And I do it every year with Taue. I do it every year with Hayabusa. And I wouldn't do that normally if there wasn't for this. So it's just a way to kind of get you to think about these guys of the past.
So Rich, thank you for coming on. You just plugged the Patreon, which of course everybody should subscribe to. Want to plug the Discord too, I guess? Yeah,
voicewrestling.com/Discord. Just launched this week, and we have a lot of people already in there. Different channels, a lot of different channels to talk about whatever you want to talk about. We have channels for New Japan Pro Wrestling, we have channels for WWE, we have channels for each one of the shows on the network as well. So if you want to talk about any of that, international wrestling, also non-wrestling too, sports, general stuff, music, video games, all that stuff. It's a good opportunity, and we're looking at it to potentially replace our forums, which we've had some trouble getting, a lot of people invested in, and it feels like a lot of people more are invested in this Discord right off the bat. So we might find ourselves replacing the forum with this Discord. But yeah, it's been really cool so far to see everybody jumping in and everybody talking, and it's been nothing but positive so far. So hopefully it keeps up, because it's been really interesting. So voicewrestling.com/Discord will get you the invite to jump in and join us.
So now you didn't mention the most important channel of all, which is the anime channel.
Right, the one that I made.
Yeah. I basically asked you for that as a joke, and you're like, "Here you go," and I was like, "What?"
Well, because all that happened was like people started talking about anime and then tagging me in discussions of anime, and I was like, "I don't want to see any of this anymore. Here, put it to anime." So
we got an anime. There's no TV channel, but there's an anime channel. So if that's not my influence over the website, I don't know what it is.
There you go.
But yes, so you can talk about anime in the anime channel. Come talk about Wrestling Omakase in the Omakase channel. Let us know what you thought of the episode. You can chat with me. You can chat with Rich in there, I guess. Rich is on the Discord too, obviously, and I think pretty much almost every guest is in the Discord.
Yeah, they're all there.
So you can talk to any of us, and obviously you can submit questions, which you just did. Again, we're on the Super J-Cast Discord too, and we have a channel there too if you're on the J-Cast Discord. I'll have the links to join both in the description here. So there you go. Follow us on Twitter. It's Wrestle Omakase, because wrestling did not fit. Rich, thanks again for coming on.
No problem.
Next week we're going to have on another, not another, because you've been on before, a brand new guest, my pal Haley on Twitter, who I talked about last week, who was at the New Japan Fighting Spirit Unleashed shows. She's going to make her debut on the podcast next week to help me talk about the King of Pro Wrestling, the big New Japan show, which is coming up next week. Are you excited for King of Pro Wrestling, Rich?
I am. It looks like a hell of a show. I can't wait.
Yeah, that card looks awesome. We're also going to talk a little bit about the first 2 weeks of AEW TV, kind of touch on that and what our thoughts are so far, because I actually think it's way more interesting to talk about after week 2 than after week 1, because, by that point, maybe you'll get more of a feel for what the TV every week is going to be like. I don't think they're going to do like a post-match attack in every segment. Like
right, hopefully not.
Yeah, so we'll get more of a feel for that. We'll talk about the first 2 weeks of TV, but the main thing will be obviously King of Pro Wrestling, so that'll be next week. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up on Omakase. I can tell you right now, something we're targeting is that first week of November, where there's going to be like that weekend. Have you seen that weekend, Rich, where there's like 4 fucking shows?
No, I don't want to. No more.
Is
that the weekend of the Noah show and stuff? And
yeah. So Noah is November 2nd. New Japan Power Struggle from the Noah Sumo Hall show, I should say, November 2nd. DT Ultimate Party November 3rd. Big Japan Ryogokutan November 4th. 3 Sumo Hall shows in a row. And that same weekend, New Japan Power Struggle from Osaka on November 3rd. So we're targeting that weekend, since obviously that's like a huge weekend for Japanese wrestling. We're going to do 2 episodes on it, probably. One with not probably, we're going to do it. A preview of that weekend. I'm going to have on Kevin Hare from Burning Spirits, who was, who's going to all those shows. He's going to Japan to see those 3 Sumo Halls. So he's going to help me preview it. Taylor will be back on too to help me preview those shows. And then we have like 3 guests for the review episode the following week. Taylor will be on again, and Thomas, and I think Jack Beckman just asked his way on from sports and wrestling. So a lot of people are going to be talking about all these shows, and we're very excited because it's like, it feels like our wheelhouse, basically, all this Japanese wrestling. So, we'll be very excited to cover all of that. I'm sure you'll cover some of it on the flagship, but
as much as we can. Yeah, this is wrestling. There's too much wrestling. Everybody's got to go out of business.
Joe recently said, like, on the Discord, like, he's done with DDT. Like, he's no longer doing any DDT. So I guess he's just not going to cover that Kenny Omega guy because he's in a pretty big match on that show. But anyway, we'll see. I guess something tells me you guys are going to at least talk about that match.
Oh yeah, for sure. We will. Yeah. I'll make him. So
yeah. So anyway, folks, thank you as always for listening, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.